Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. Grand Line's Lord of Shadows. Chapter 1. Sea Circle Calendar, 1515. The first half of the Grand Line. The Devil's Sea is shrouded in fog all year round and never sees the sun. A huge island ship lay across there, full of eerie atmosphere. It's chilling, hateful. Now, inside a European-style castle, Gecko Moria, who was tall and bloated, nearly 7 meters tall, clutched his abdomen in pain. A thin stream of cold sweat broke out on his head. Feeling excruciating pain and extremely weak, he glared angrily at the thin, mummy-like figure in front of him. Full of anger and unwillingness, revealing a murderous intention. Who on earth are you? Hey, Moria, don't you remember me so soon? The mummy, covered in bandages, was smiling sinisterly. He slowly untied the bandages around his body, revealing his somewhat thin figure. You are. Staring at the other person, Moria's pupils shrank sharply. Return to life and release. But in a blink of an eye, the seemingly thin figure clenched his fists and let out a low shout. Crack, crack, all the bones in the body rang in unison, and the whole body's body kept rising, expanding at a speed visible to the naked eye. He transformed into a black-haired boy about 3 meters tall, with an unbelievably strong physique and a handsome face. With a slightly immature face, he looked only 16 or 17 years old. Seems high-spirited, full of energy. Hell, William. Moria's eyes were splitting, and she gritted her teeth. You. How could he not know this young man? Because, just a few days ago, he just took away the other party's shadow. Moreover, what is even more shocking is this guy's identity. Black Prison, Obax William. One is as famous as Rob Lucci and is known as the strongest genius in CP9's 800 years. For some unknown reason, half a month ago, he suddenly killed his boss and defected. The outraged world government directly offered a bounty of 200 million belly. Unfortunately, he strayed into the Devil's Triangle and was targeted by the 7 warlords of the sea. He relied on the power of the shadow fruit to defeat him, take away his opponent's shadow, and create the strongest zombie in 800 years, Demon Oz. What really impressed Moria was this. A lackey brainwashed and trained by the world government actually possesses the rare conqueror's haki. He thought he valued the other party enough. In order to prevent this guy from causing trouble, his limbs were locked in a prison at the bottom of the castle. Unexpectedly, Black Prison William escaped from trouble without saying a word. He also disguised himself as a zombie and poisoned him, the 7 warlords of the sea. Shadow Mage. Suddenly, just as Moria was about to use her ability, her expression changed drastically. His shadow fruit ability was actually unable to be activated. At first, he only felt weak, which was due to the poisoning. As this, sea stone, he woke up, looking at the fruit platter scattered on the floor. He looked at the other party angrily, full of despair, and his heart sank to the bottom. You guy, actually put sea stone in the food. I have to say that being too big does have risks. Obask William looked directly at Moria, who was as weak as a little giant, and said sarcastically, if you want to blame, it's because you are too conceited. You really think that by locking your limbs, you can not only return the life you have controlled, but also I am not a capable person yet, am I trapped? I am a killing machine trained by the world government, a senior agent specializing in assassination missions. What if I let you use my shadow to create the strongest zombie? I don't have to fight with that guy to the end to get my shadow back. He is full of playfulness. Gecko Moria was poisoned by a poison he specially prepared for him. His strength cannot be used at all. And, just in the fruit platter, he deliberately hid the sea stone inside the fruit. Originally, the sea stone was not very regular, but it was better than the smaller sea stone. It was embedded in the ring he carried with him, and was specially used to deal with ability users. I specially picked it out and put it in the fruit. Moria, who is more than 7 meters tall and looks like a little giant, can be said to be swallowing everything in a hurry without paying much attention at all. If he had been more vigilant, his plan might not have succeeded so easily. But Gecko Moria has been comfortable for too long. There was no need to be wary at all. Didn't notice it at all. By the way, I forgot to tell you. William twisted his neck and said with a sneer, 3 of your subordinates have been subdued by me. He knew everything about Moria's 3 subordinates. Of course, it is impossible to be unprepared. It's Princess Mononoke, Corona. He had also been knocked unconscious by the drug. And Absalom was knocked unconscious by him. Locked with a sea stone, disguised as a corpse, and locked in the cellar. As for the genius surgeon Dr. Hoba Gu, he has the lowest combat power, and he is not a fruit ability user, so he is not a threat. It wasn't until he was about to take action that he caught him by surprise and knocked him unconscious. He was tied up and locked up in his bedroom. Asshole, come here. Moria looked livid and shouted outside. He felt numb all over his body, abdominal cramps, and cold sweat. Wow, he braced himself in front of him. Just as he was about to rush towards Obask William, he couldn't help but stumbled and fell to one knee. He vomited blood and looked pale. Stop screaming, it's useless. William looked at the other party and said with some contempt, all the zombies in this castle were tricked by me into going to the church in the name of Absalom. Announce that that guy is going to hold a wedding with a beautiful woman he just captured, and all the zombies must be present to watch the ceremony. Change voice, disguise, lurk. For him, as an elite agent of CP9, it couldn't be easier. Deceive these zombies who have no IQ. It can be said that it is a piece of cake. One of the three weirdos under Gecko Moria, Absalom, who has the ability of Paramesha transparent fruit, is an out-and-out lustful person. However, he has an ugly appearance, and through Dr. Hogbagu's surgery, he transformed himself into a human being and a ghost. No woman can even look at him. So, for this guy to steal the beauty, he can't wait for the wedding. The zombies had no suspicion. Oz, come back here. Moria struggled and screamed. It's too late. I won't give you such a chance. Thanks to you, I was afraid that it would be too big and damage this terrifying ship, so I arranged for it to be on the other side. Said. William hesitated no longer. His eyes showed murderous intent, and he rushed out decisively. Kai. For a moment, a ruthless offensive was launched. Finger pistol Gatling gun. The index finger of his right hand stretched out, as fast as lightning. Whoosh, whoosh, he kept stabbing out like bullets. Tearing Gecko Moria's body apart. Ah, ah. How so? What happened? Ah. The shadow inside my body. The shadow is leaving. No, Lord Moria, on the ship of terror. Not far from the castle. In a gorgeous but eerie church. Countless zombies of strange shapes gathered there. They were originally going to attend the wedding of Lord Absalom, one of the three weird men, but instead of waiting for the bride and groom to arrive, they were met with a nightmare of despair. They all screamed and struggled in pain, full of fear and anxiety. But he still opened his mouth involuntarily, and dark shadows rose into the sky and flew in all directions. And on the other side of the ship of terror. Bang, bang. What happened? The earth shook. A cloud of smoke and dust billowed up. A huge, exaggerated figure that covered the sky and the sun also roared unwillingly. The sound is like a loud bell, and the terrifying momentum makes people's scalp numb. Ah, no matter how huge he is, no matter how unwilling he is, no matter how hard he struggles. It still opened its mouth uncontrollably. Brush, a black shadow separated from its body. Rushed towards the direction of the castle. An unbelievably huge body that was tens of meters tall. It seemed that all of a sudden the strength of support was lost. He collapsed there with a bang. Boom boom. For a while. The whole island boat. They all seemed to tremble violently. Rocks flew and smoke billowed. Astonishing wind pressure was raging, and the waves were surging on the sea. It makes one break into a cold sweat. This is Shadow. My shadow. My shadow is back. Great. We can leave. Thank God. Woo. And deep in the forest. Faintly, there were bursts of screams. A pirate and businessman who passed through this devilish sea in the past, but was snatched away by Gecko Moria, and was forced to be trapped on a terrifying ship, unable to escape or see the sun. Everyone was ecstatic and cried with joy. And at this moment, inside a gorgeous castle, looking at the tall figure covered in blood, eyes wide open, lying there unwillingly. Orbach William, who didn't care about the outside world at all, looked calm. He took the hand towel next to him and wiped the bloodline on his hands slowly. Are you back? Looking at the shadow at his feet, he chuckled. He was an orphan born on an island in the Grand Line. Born with the awakened observation hockey, he can easily cover the entire island, sense the target's breath and emotions, and even directly determine whether the other party has hidden malice. Adopted by an orphanage funded by the world government. Observation hockey awakened at the age of 5 due to his birthright. Moreover, his food intake is astonishing and his body is far beyond that of ordinary people. Thus being noticed by CP agents, he was taken to the CP training base Guanao Island for brainwashing and training. With his amazing talent, he stood out and became another shining star that has attracted as much attention as Rob Lucci. When he was 8 years old, he accidentally injured his head during a training session. After awakening, Suhui, I began to remember all the past events, and finally understood what kind of world I had entered. So, from that moment on, he was unwilling to be mediocre, and he was unwilling to remain a lackey of the world government, so he began to secretly hide his strength. And exercise harder than usual. Gritting his teeth, he'd put in 200 times more effort than others, practicing day and night. Even when others thought he was asleep, he still stayed awake and cooperated with meditation to practice the secret of life return. With his own talent and hard work, at the age of 12, he had mastered all 6 postures, and at the age of 15, he had mastered the return of life. Today, William, who just turned 17 not long ago, has already exceeded 5,000 Dao power. Not only was the observation hockey born with it, he also honed it to perfection. And have already mastered armament hockey. He has become the truly strongest person in CP9 for 800 years. But being cautious by nature, he has always kept a low profile and hid his true strength. Externally, he only shows talent and strength that are almost the same as Rob Lucci, the CP9 genius, but slightly surpasses his opponent, without seeming too exaggerated. Until half a month ago. Received orders from Spandam, the top commander of CP9. He was asked to follow Rob Lucci and others to the Carrera Company in the Water City as an undercover agent or as a boatman. He didn't want to waste precious time like Rob Lucci and his team in the original trajectory, and he didn't want the world government to easily get the Pluton design. Refuse decisively and want to shirk. Originally, Spandam had already agreed. As a result, he was bumped into by former CP9 chief Spangdine, who happened to be coming from the Holy Land to visit his son. Seeing that his son, the dignified chief executive of CP9, actually gave in because of the opinions of a CP9 member, Spangdane was extremely dissatisfied and overbearingly vetoed William's opinions and tried to use his power to force him to surrender. The irritated William first pretended to be helpless and agreed. After Rob Lucci and others set out first, they turned around without hesitation and killed Spandam and Spandam, the father and son who had long been displeasing to him and wanted to kill him. He even snatched 2 devil fruits that had just been escorted to Enni's lobby, and were about to be sent to the Holy Land Mariajoy through the giant vortex current connecting the 3 major agencies of the world government. He defected directly and magnificently. Unfortunately, we encountered a huge storm. He strayed into the Devil's Triangle and broke into the terrifying ship. He was even targeted by Gecko Moria, the 7 warlords of the sea. After a fierce battle, he was finally crushed by Moria, who had greatly increased his strength after devouring hundreds of shadows with the power of the shadow fruit. After waking up, he found that he had not only lost his shadow, and he was imprisoned by Moria in the prison at the bottom of the castle. Therefore, William, unwilling to be slaughtered by others, began his own revenge plan. Relying on the already extremely skilled return of life, the broken and dislocated bones were put back into place. After he recovered a lot from his serious injuries, he directly used life return to greatly reduce his size and escape. With the return of life, he changed his body shape, disguised himself as a zombie, and waited for opportunities to act. He also saw his own zombie, the Demon Oz. It is definitely different from the original Max version, and not only is it proficient in the 6 styles of Grandmaster, it may also be the kind that has mastered hockey. But as a CP9 elite trained by world government, how could William be stupid enough to confront someone head-on? The results apparently went well. Being suppressed by Kaido, he completely lost his spirit. Coupled with the excessively comfortable Shichibukai life for many years, the former West Blue hero completely relaxed. Moria is dead, and she's dead. Then what happens next? But suddenly, William just turned around. I accidentally caught a glimpse of the fruit plate next to me. The whole person's pupils couldn't help but shrink, and he stood there blankly. That is, I don't know when it started. A round fruit wrapped in large leaves, dark inside and with strange patterns, has quietly appeared on it. Paramesha shadow fruit. Step forward subconsciously. After picking up the fruit, William was in a daze. Having seen the devil fruit illustrated book before, he naturally recognized this fruit. This is clearly the shadow fruit belonging to Moria. It seems that after the other person's death, the demon escaped from his body and was reborn directly. But he didn't expect that it would appear in front of him like this. Allah, does this mean you chose me? William stared at the shadow fruit and smiled lightly. Although, it's not that he doesn't have other options, he doesn't necessarily have to choose it. But he had to admit that he was a little moved. After all, no matter how the version changes, the ability of Paramesha shadow fruit is one of the very buggy abilities. Gecko Moria, the guy who was tortured by Kaido and lost his energy and became a fat nerd. It simply didn't fully unleash its power. Tisk, it's so disgusting. After a while, inside the castle, without hesitation for long, Obask William made up his mind. Resisting the indescribable feeling of nausea, he swallowed the shadow fruit with skin and flesh. His face turned purple and blue, and it took him a long time to recover. What an interesting ability, closing his eyes and feeling the changes in his body. Trying to master the ability of the fruit he had just obtained. The dark shadow under his feet seemed to have self-awareness, circling on the ground like lion majesty. Swish. Soon, it split like a branch. It turned into one black tentacle after another, dancing in the air. Chi, in an instant. The extremely thick wall, it was pierced directly by those sharp shadow tentacles, as if it were tofu. It made people's scalps numb. Next, it's time to deal with those guys. After a moment of effort, with his strong talent, William quickly adapted to his new abilities and was able to use them skillfully. He looked out the gloomy window with a burning gaze. He showed a playful smile. He was not a good guy. If he let go of the pirates and merchants trapped here, then where would he find tools and materials for experimenting with the shadow fruit? Moreover, even if he did not obtain the ability of the Paramesha shadow fruit, he was not prepared to let these guys go. Because he had made up his mind from the beginning to use the terror ship as his base camp for the next stay. How could he risk having his information leaked out? As a member of CP9, he would not underestimate the intelligence capabilities of the world government at all. CP's spies are omnipresent. It's not just talk. Are you all here? In the forest outside the castle, a large number of skinny and scary figures. They hid there in groups of 3 or 5, but did not rush out. There were no less than 200 or 300 people. These were pirates, merchants, and travelers who had mistakenly entered this sea area or passed through the nearby sea area and were lured here by Gecko Moria, and were unfortunately trapped on the island. But they had not seen the sun for a long time and were malnourished. Many people looked like evil spirits and zombies, which was a bit scary. Obviously, seeing the shadow suddenly return, they wanted to confirm what happened. See if they had a chance to escape from here next. It's too troublesome to deal with them one by one. William looked calm. He jumped directly onto the huge window, looking down at the outside world. Buzz. The next moment, William's eyes suddenly shone. An unparalleled momentum spread out from him. With the castle as the center, it swept in all directions. Plop, plop. Invisible mental shock. These pirates and merchants who did not have much strength. One by one, their eyes rolled back, foamed at the mouth, and fell there. Conqueror's Hockey. When William recovered his memory from his previous life, because his entire brain was strongly stimulated and awakened. But it has always been hidden by him and has never been revealed in front of others. He has only continued to explore and try in secret. After years of hard work, I am finally able to control it freely and accurately. Sure enough, Conqueror's Hockey is closely related to personal vigor. William opened his arms. The whole person looked high-spirited and chuckled. Since I made up my mind to break away from the world government, even Conqueror's Hockey, which has been making little progress, has begun to improve a lot. He can feel it. Ever since I really made up my mind to abandon my identity as CP9. Even if we have to face the endless pursuit of the behemoth world government in the future, we must live our own wonderful life on this sea without being dominated or instigated by anyone. From that moment on, it was as if he had broken free from some invisible shackles and restraints. Conqueror's hockey, who had been making little progress, seemed to have reached a higher level. His whole spirit began to glow. Shadow Mage. All of a sudden, the shadow under his feet suddenly left the ground. It expanded at a speed visible to the naked eye and turned into a pitch-black human form. Although the whole body was pitch black and his face could not be seen clearly, his appearance was exactly the same as William himself. Leave it to you, bring them all back. In the blink of an eye. A dark shadow clone. Fu Lingling. As if he had self-awareness, he turned into a large number of bats. At an alarming speed, he rushed out the window. Clang, bang, 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 bang. In Moria's bedroom, William began to rummage through the boxes and searched carefully. The 7 warlords of the sea can't possibly only have that little treasure, right? He had already sneaked in and searched the treasure house above this castle. In addition to a large amount of Bailey's cash, there were quite a few gold, silver and jewelry. But in total, it is only 200 to 300 million belly. For ordinary little pirates, this is already an astronomical sum of money. But for Gecko Moria as the 7 warlords of the sea, it is obviously not in line with his identity. Of course, this guy was beaten to a pulp by Kaido, the beast, and became a ruined house. Over the years, I have been hiding in the Devil's Foggy Sea. It's not like other 7 warlords of the sea who attack everywhere, or directly use the identity of 7 warlords of the sea to run various illegal profit-making businesses and become bigger and stronger. Simply by plundering passing ships on nearby routes. Accumulate less treasure. That's normal, but it's a little strange. This guy is obsessed with robbing tombs, digging up the corpses of strong men, and creating powerful zombies. As a senior tomb robber, logically speaking, there shouldn't be only this little treasure. Sure enough, I just said. William smiled as he looked at the 3 or 4 treasure maps found in the secret compartment. 3 of them are full of traces of time. There is also a faint smell of earth. Apparently they are unearthed cultural relics. There is one more. It looks relatively new, most likely Moria's own treasure map. Captain John's treasure map. Looking at one of the old treasure maps that looked like ghost drawings, William couldn't help but narrowed his eyes. If he remembered correctly, Moria had indeed robbed Captain John's tomb. And he turned Captain John's body into a zombie. The key is that a burial armband inlaid with gems fell into Moria's hands. It seems that thing has something to do with Captain John's treasure. If this treasure map is true, maybe that armband is the key to unlocking this treasure map. I can't thank you enough, Moria. William smiled. Looking down at Moria's wide-eyed, lifeless body, he said with a bit of sarcasm, these treasures can save me a lot of trouble. Next, just keep your eyes open and watch carefully. Who is truly the most suitable person for the Shadow Fruit's abilities. I do not know how long it has been. Dr. Hogbagu, Absalom, and Corona. They regained consciousness one after another and woke up from the coma. Woo, woo. He found himself locked in seastone handcuffs, unable to move, and even his mouth was gagged. Everyone's expressions changed drastically, and they couldn't help but struggle. Full of fear and uneasiness. And, what makes them scary is, next to him, there was a tall, bloody figure lying. Surprisingly, it is their master, Gecko Moria. I couldn't believe my eyes. The miserable death situation made them even more frightened and chilly. Some scalp tingling. It's really unimaginable. As a famous pirate, the bounty was as high as 320 million belly more than 10 years ago. Later, he accepted the invitation of the world government and became the great pirate of 7 warlords of the sea. Their master Gecko Moria was actually killed like this. Allah, are you all awake? The door opens. William's tall figure walked in. The 3 weirdos, Hogba Gu, Absalom, and Corona, could not help but widen their eyes. Looking at each other in disbelief. Obviously recognized William. I heard that this boy had joined CP9 at the age of 12. Half a month ago, he had the audacity to kill his boss who had defected and was wanted by the world government. But they were impressed. Incredibly strong. If it weren't for the ability of the Shadow Fruit, that Lord Moria might not even be able to defeat him. But didn't they take away his shadow and turn this guy into the strongest zombie Oz? And they were exiled to the Devil's Mist Sea. Sorry, your respected Lord Moria is dead. Looking at the 3 people full of shock and fear. William pulled up a chair and sat there with his legs crossed. Gia smiled strangely. From now on, I am the boss of this terrifying ship. This is also fate's arrangement. Ha ha ha, hateful. Lord Moria, you guy, looking at Moria's bloody and miserable corpse. Absalom, Perona, and Hogbaguba were locked in seastone handcuffs and tied up, struggling there. At the same time, they all stared at William fiercely, shocked and angry. Never thought of it. Due to their carelessness, they were caught so easily by the other party. Even Lord Moria, whom he considered invincible, was killed. Ooh, Lord Moria. Perona was horrified. I couldn't help but cry. Tears were streaming down his face and he looked very sad. Because he was adopted by the other party when he was very young. To her, Moria is like her adoptive father. It was inevitable to be very sad to see the other person being killed like this. Ha ha. And William chuckled, not in a hurry to do anything. Just crossing his legs, the old god was sitting there. What awaits? That is, at this time, in the shocked eyes of the three weirdos. A black shadow flew in from the window. He was holding a black box that was somewhat dirty and covered in mud. Are you really still there? William smiled. Take the treasure box from the shadow clone. This was something he snatched from the world government's escort ship before he defected. While being pursued by Marine, he accidentally encountered a storm and accidentally broke into the Devil's Mist Sea. When he saw this terrifying ship, he already realized that something was wrong. He knew that he was probably being targeted by Gecko Moria, the 7 warlords of the sea. Without hesitation, he hid it on the coast of the terror ship in advance. It was only now that the shadow clone was asked to take it out. Wait a minute, you guy. For a moment, it was like seeing a ghost. The voices of Dr. Hogbagu and Absalom were trembling. Everyone couldn't help but widen their eyes and looked at William in front of them in shock. How come you have Lord Moria's abilities? What? I was originally sad because of Moria's death. Perona, who was a bit confused, came to her senses and was shocked. Is this the ability of the shadow fruit? She stared blankly at the black figure standing upright, similar to William's figure. Looking at William in horror, he couldn't believe it, and cried out hysterically, "You actually got Lord Moria's ability." The three of them couldn't help but be filled with fear, and some felt chills all over their bodies. After the person with the ability dies, won't the devil fruit ability be reborn randomly? Why does the other party have the ability of the shadow fruit? Gia ha ha ha, it's incredible, right? I'm also shocked. William had no intention of being secretive. He bared his teeth and said, I can only say that it chose me. I never thought about becoming a shadow fruit user, but it just happened to appear in front of me. It's not like he has no other options. At first, I was really not prepared to take the power of the shadow fruit. Because I knew that there was little hope, I never thought about becoming a shadow fruit user. Moreover, whether it is a devil fruit that he accidentally obtained and intercepted privately while performing a mission in CP9, or the 2 devil fruit that he snatched from the world government half a month ago, he also has very good abilities. However, William, who has a relatively high vision, has no intention of becoming an ability user immediately because he has other options. I never made up my mind, I just hid them. After killing Moria, this Paramesha shadow fruit was miraculously reborn in front of him. Only then did William make up his mind. Chose it. What? Hear the words. The 3 weirdos were all shocked and inexplicable. Looking at William in disbelief. After Moria died, his shadow fruit was reborn directly in front of the other party. How can this be? Have to say. Raise your right hand slightly and clenched it into a fist. William said with high spirits. Destiny is so wonderful. Then, it's time for you 3 to make a choice. Looking down at the 3 people with horrified expressions. He bared his teeth and smiled sinisterly. Submit to me, or follow Moria to death. Wait, I am willing to surrender and be loyal to you, Lord Orbach William. Dr. Hogba Gu said hurriedly there. Of course he knew the other party's name, because there had been relevant reports in the newspapers a few days ago. Black Prison, Orbach William, was once an agent affiliated with CP9. Due to unknown reasons, he suddenly killed a young monster who defected from his boss and was wanted by the world government at a price of 200 million belly. A few days ago, they witnessed the fierce battle between the other party and Moria with their own eyes. It's simply unbelievably strong. If it weren't for the ability of the shadow fruit, that Lord Moria can't take this guy down at all. And now, after Moria's death, her fruit ability was inexplicably obtained by Orbach William. In time, Hell William's strength will surely surpass that of Moria, the 7 warlords of the sea. In this case, any fool knows how to choose. He had no intention of being buried with Moria. Dr. Hoba Gu. Absalom's expression changed on the side, and he glared at the other party angrily. Are you going to betray Lord Moria? Lord Moria is his benefactor. But he was killed by the person in front of him. How could he give in so easily and serve the other party? Fart. What kind of betrayal? Lord Moria and I. Dr. Hogba Gu said excitedly. No, Moria, we're just a cooperative relationship, not to mention he is dead now. Don't forget, the premise that I was willing to cooperate with that Moria guy at the beginning was because he could use the power of the shadow fruit to resurrect Sindori. As a result, in the battle with Lord William a few days ago, that Moria not only killed Sindori's shadow was absorbed and her body was destroyed beyond repair. I have to cremate my beloved Sindori. Speaking of which, Hogbagu couldn't help but grit his teeth. He almost fell out with Gecko Moria because Sindori's body was destroyed. For this reason, I was still sad for 3 days and 3 nights. Oh, William raised his eyebrows. Is there such a thing? A few days ago, when I first broke into the terror ship, faced with Moria who has set his sights on him, he defeated many zombies along the way, and directly killed Gu Lakan in front of the castle. Originally, he wanted to talk to the 7 warlords of the sea, but Moria was too conceited and directly rejected his proposal to cooperate. And after a brief confrontation, it turned out that he was still unable to defeat himself. He was also afraid that he would directly destroy the castle, so he had to swallow a large number of shadows, greatly increasing his own strength, and crushing him with his powerful power. Unexpectedly, Moria accidentally destroyed Sindori's body. For that poor woman, though. This is actually the best ending. Of course these are not your fault, Sir William. Dr. Hogba Gu smiled sarcastically. He took a deep breath and said to Absalom, the most important thing is that because of the ability of the shadow fruit, Sir William was chosen. Isn't this saying that Lord William is the man who can become the pirate king? Although in a hurry, some want to flatter William. But Dr. Hogbakugu does think so. Devil fruit will randomly regenerate after the death of the ability user. This is common knowledge in Grand Line. It stands to reason that under normal circumstances, the regenerated shadow fruit should appear in an unknown corner of the sea. How could it be such a coincidence that he was reborn directly in front of Obask William? He had to believe it. This might really be fate. Wise choice. William snapped his fingers. He looked at Dr. Hobakugu with admiration. I just like to deal with smart people. Although the other party is a complete villain. But at least that medical skill is real and has enough value to exist. As long as he is obedient, he doesn't mind keeping the other person. After all, even he can't guarantee that he won't get hurt or sick. It won't work if there isn't a good doctor in the team. So, inside the room, bold and grandiose, sat William smiling. His fingers gently lifted Perona's chin. What's your choice? He looked down at this little Princess Mononoke with pear-shaped face, and I felt pity for her. With a height of 1.6 meters, she looks a little petite, with a pretty and charming appearance. She wears a crown and a princess costume. If I remember correctly, this girl must have just turned 18. She is completely a legal loli. The most important thing is, pink hair, stockings, and twin tails. N times assists. Do not kill me. The handsome face in front of me. In Perona's eyes, he already looked like a demon. Her face was stained with tears, her face turned pale, and her whole body was trembling and full of fear. Without hesitation, he said loudly, I am also willing to work for you. Although she hated the other party for killing Moria, Perona didn't want to die in vain. Moreover, what Dr. Hogba Gugu said makes sense. Lord Moria was killed by the opponent, but the power of the shadow fruit appeared in front of this man. Wasn't it the shadow fruit that chose him? She also wants to know how far the other party can go in the future. Ooh, I'm so sorry, Lord Moria, please forgive my cowardice. I'm still so young and don't want to die so early. I will pay homage to you on time every year. Woohoo. Very good. William smiled and let go of Perona. Looking to the side, Absalom was looking at him with fear. Wait, I am also willing to serve you, Lord William. Absalom said hurriedly with a cold sweat on his head. But in those panicked eyes, there was a hint of resentment that could not be concealed, and there was a deep malice in his heart. But William couldn't help but sneer. Yeah, without warning. He kicked out violently. He kicked directly towards the ugly face with the lion's mouth sewn together. Boom. Ah. Blood splattered. Absalom screamed with a bloody head. The expressions of Perona and Hogkubagu changed drastically, and they were a little frightened. Are you thinking about how to kill me? William's face was expressionless. The right foot wearing shiny black leather shoes. He stepped on Absalom's face unceremoniously and crushed it hard. Teach you a lesson for free. When you lie in the next life, remember to hide the malice in your eyes. Ah! Absalom screamed. The whole person was so painful that he fainted. Faintly, there was a slight cracking sound from the skull. Both Hogkubagu and Perona couldn't help but feel numbness in their scalps and chills. Bang-dang. Under William's control, the dark shadow seemed to have an entity. A black tentacle was directly divided, and the tip penetrated directly into the keyhole, unlocking the seastone handcuffs on the hands of Dr. Hogbagu and Perona. For him, a user with the ability of the shadow fruit. As long as the main body does not directly touch the seastone, the shadow controlled by itself can touch the seastone. It's just that the zombies created by plundering other people's shadows will be restrained by seawater and salt. After gaining freedom, the two people who survived the disaster could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. Looking at Absalom, who was covered in blood and unconscious after being tortured. I was a little frightened, but at the same time I was very happy. Click. William ignored the two men. He opened the box in his hand directly. This made Perona and Hogbagu widen their eyes. I saw 3 weird-shaped devil fruits, quietly placed there. There is also a logo on it. Paramesha repair fruit. Cat fruit leopard form. Rat fruit phantom beast species scythe weasel form. Hiss. 3 devil fruit. Gasped. Both Hogbagu and Perona's eyes widened. He never expected that the other party actually had so many devil fruits. Moreover, there is also a legendary zone phantom beast species. They had heard that Lord Moria mention it. That is a rarer ability than Logia. Huobagu, you must not be an Esper, right? Glancing at Dr. Hogbagu. Looking at the 3 devil fruits, William thought for a moment. He picked up the Paramesha repair fruit and threw it directly to the opponent. This fruit is given to you. Honestly, even William didn't expect it at first. World government can give itself such a big surprise before leaving. That's right, the abilities of cat fruit leopard form and mouse fruit phantom beast species scythe weasel form. When he defected, he snatched it directly from the world government escort ship that had just arrived at Eni's lobby. This is why William's bounty is so high. And the ability of that Paramesha repair fruit. He just joined CP9 2 years ago and accidentally obtained it when he was sent to a kingdom in South Blue to perform an assassination mission. He intercepted it privately and did not turn it over to the world government. Not to mention the ability of the cat fruit and leopard form, it is just an ordinary zone. Regardless of whether it is Paramesha repair fruit, or rat fruit phantom beast species, the ability in the form of a sickle and weasel, generally speaking, they are quite good. But it still failed to meet William's psychological expectations. So he has been hesitant and has not made up his mind to eat it. In the end, he chose the Paramesha shadow fruit that appeared in front of him. Gulu. This is the repair fruit. Subconsciously, he caught the fruit thrown by William. Dr. Hogbagu swallowed his saliva and couldn't help being overjoyed. Sir William, do you really want to give it to me? Even Perona on the side could not help but be filled with astonishment. Some couldn't believe it. They were just forced to join, right? Is the other party so generous? Aren't you afraid of their betrayal? For you doctors, I think you should be very clear about the value of this fruit, right? William asked with a smile. Paramesha repair fruit. According to the Devil Fruit Illustrated book, its ability is very simple. It can repair all targets. Whether it is a living body or a non-living body, it is truly a snake oil level ability. For the profession of doctor, the desire for it is definitely second only to op fruit. Certainly, Dr. Hogbagu nodded repeatedly. He had seen the Devil Fruit illustrated book when he was young, and of course he knew the value of this repair fruit. For doctors, it is simply priceless. Don't be suspicious of people you employ, don't be suspicious of people. Put away the other devil fruit. William patted him on the shoulder, full of confidence, and said with a chuckle, I am different from the guy in Moria who was completely beaten by Kaido and lost his spirit and was unable to recover. Follow me, your future will never stop here. Although his observation haki cannot listen to other people's voices, but it can accurately sense the target's emotions and even determine whether the other party is malicious. If the two of them want to fool themselves, it couldn't be hidden from his perception at all. Don't let me down, Dr. Hobakugu. Just the ability of a paramesha repair fruit. For him, it was worth it to train an excellent ship doctor. Although Dr. Hogba Gu is still very weak at present. But it doesn't matter, just adjust it slowly next time. Anyway, he didn't expect the other party to become a cadre of the level of 3 disasters and generals. Have a certain ability to protect yourself. Just don't hold back. Thank you so much, Lord William. Dr. Hogba Gu was a little overjoyed. Full of excitement. I will work hard for you, and I will do my best without any hesitation. Said. He couldn't wait to grab the fruit and took a bite. Ah! His face turned purple all of a sudden, and he covered his mouth. It tastes just like the rumors. Hee hee, idiot, who told you to be so impatient? Meeting William wasn't just about taking advantage of them. But he really intends to make the two of him his subordinates. He even gave a precious devil fruit to Dr. Hoba Gu. Perona, who had relaxed a little, felt a little gloating when she saw the other party was in trouble. Stop blabbering, Perona, you guy. Dr. Hogba bared his teeth. This is one of the abilities that countless doctors dream of, in addition to the legendary op fruit. Seeing someone as powerful as Moria being killed so easily. Having just faced the threat of a strong man like William, and witnessed Absalom's tragic situation with his own eyes, he realized how weak he was, and of course he longed for greater power. Although it is impossible to compete with those ridiculously powerful monsters, at least it can give yourself some sense of security. Especially, paramesha repair fruit for a doctor like him. It is simply a dream ability. Remember to dispose of Moria's body and freeze it first. Use Moria's clothes to wipe the bloodline on the leather shoes. Glancing at his cold body and the unconscious Absalom, William sitting there ordered, as for this guy, lock him up first and don't let him escape. Although this guy is very weak, but as a user with paramesha transparent fruit ability, maybe it can come in handy. Yes, Lord William. Dr. Hogba Gu nodded hurriedly. He is now 100% confirmed. There is a much better future for following this master than following Moria. That kind of courage alone is not comparable to that of the dead Moria. In addition, I have asked the shadow clones to arrest the other people on this island. William pointed outside. Glancing at Dr. Hogba Gu, who was inexplicably excited, he continued to give instructions. You go and lock them all up, I will be useful next. Yes, Dr. Hogbagu nodded repeatedly, still a little immersed in the joy of obtaining the ability of paramesha repair fruit. Full of ecstasy, unable to extricate myself. Then I'll leave it to you. Next, you can get familiar with your newly acquired abilities. After explaining, William stretched his back. He stood up and walked outside. Perona, come with me. Hiss, please walk slowly. Watched William leave with Perona. Dr. Hogba Gu looked at Moria's little giant-like body. He couldn't help grinning, and laughed strangely. Lord Moria, I'm sorry. Now that I have made up my mind, I will follow this adult. Then of course you have to do what the other party tells you. Show yourself as loyal as possible. Ta. In the long corridor. The clear sound of footsteps kept echoing. Looking at the back of the unguarded figure walking straight ahead. The expression on Perona's face, who was following behind, was changing, with entanglement and hesitation in his eyes. I really want to use the ability of the ghost fruit directly, and rely on the negative ghost to make the opponent lose the power to resist. To avenge his respected Lord Moria. But after all, he didn't dare to take action. Well, Lord William, feeling a little uneasy, she asked cautiously, do you need me to do anything? Woo, Lord Moria, it's not that I don't want to avenge you, it's just that this guy is too scary. I thought you would use the power of the ghost fruit to sneak attack me. William paused. He turned around and looked at her with a smile. His sharp gaze seemed to be able to see through people's hearts. It looks like you're not that stupid after all. Ah, Perona's heart skipped a beat. She was a little panicked and covered in cold sweat. Subconsciously dodging William's falcon-like gaze that made people tremble inexplicably, not daring to look directly at him, he hurriedly waved his hands and said, How could it be? His back was soaked with cold sweat. The other party is indeed an agent of CP9, and he is clearly aware of his fruit abilities. Fortunately she didn't take action. So, William gently pinched Perona's chin. His dark eyes looked directly into her eyes that were subconsciously dodging because of her guilty conscience, and asked with a smile, Tell me, what were you thinking just now? Even if you can't hear Perona's voice directly. But how could the other party's emotional changes be hidden from him? At one time he showed malice, and at another time he was suppressed by reason. Apparently he had repeatedly debated whether to take action against himself. What? Hearing this, Perona's face turned pale and she was sweating profusely. He looked at the ridiculously young figure in front of him with horror. Can this guy directly read people's hearts? This is the final warning. Slender index finger. Gently stroke its smooth cheeks. With a smile on his face, William said calmly, It's just this once, it won't happen next time. He could naturally guess what Perona was thinking. As an elite agent of CP9, he is not just a master of force. He is better at psychology, and combined with his innate observation hockey, he can easily guess the other person's heart. But what is needed is this fear and unknown. Yes, I definitely don't dare anymore, Lord William. Perona was sweating coldly. Full of panic and uneasiness, he was busy begging for mercy. Patting his breasts which were beginning to take shape. Promise it with all your heart. Although death penalty can be avoided, living crime cannot be avoided. Patting the smooth face, looking at her big round eyes, William said playfully, You have made a mistake, but you will be punished. Ah, hear William say this. Perona, who thought it had been revealed and had just breathed a sigh of relief, couldn't help but feel her heart jump again. Suddenly I became a little nervous. Click, a door was opened. Perona's eyes widened. Isn't this her room? Although he was confused, he could only bite the bullet and follow William in. The door closed with a bang. William, bold and grandiose, sat on the sofa, looking at Perona standing there tremblingly, anxiously waiting for her resignation. He neatly threw over a sea-stone handcuff and said expressionlessly, Perona, I'm very angry now. You have betrayed my trust. In view of your behavior and your dangerous abilities, you will wear sea-stone handcuffs until you pass my test again. Sea-stone. Perona was in a daze. Why is the other party still carrying a pair of sea-stone handcuffs? Is it used specifically to deal with yourself? She was full of remorse, and begged with a bitter face, Master William, I know I was wrong, and I never dare to do it again. Can you not wear this? Squint your eyes. William's voice suddenly rose. I wear it. Perona pursed her lips, almost crying. Busy there and put on sea-stone handcuffs. For a moment, the whole person became powerless again, and his abilities could no longer be used. Then Lord William, looking at the figure in front of him who is younger than himself, but looks like a devil. Perona couldn't help but swallow her saliva and asked nervously, I know I was wrong. How can I pass your test and regain your trust? Now her intestines are full of regret. I wish I could slap myself in the face and think about something else. If you stay by the other party's side obediently, won't you be able to continue to be a cadre on the ship of terror as before? Besides, she didn't want to wear this thing every day. I feel so weak and miserable. That depends on your performance. William stroked her pretty face and said with a smile, I promise to be obedient and whatever you say will be yours. Perona was busy assuring herself. The little girl was really frightened. Okay, you go prepare the bath water first. William leaned back on the sofa and closed his eyes there to relax. In the past few days, he had put a lot of thought into tonight's plan. Really need to relax. Originally, if the plan to assassinate Moria failed, he was ready to directly eat the ability of the Phantom Beast species, the sickle and weasel. However, compared to the Phantom Beast blue dragon form, which is comprehensive and impeccably perfect in all aspects, The general abilities of the phantom species, the Kometa form, are recorded in the Devil Fruit illustrated book. It has sickle-sharp claws and can release wind blades that tear everything apart. This ability is certainly good, but it obviously didn't meet his expectations. Therefore, William has not made up his mind for a long time. Unexpectedly, he accidentally became a user with the ability of the Shadow Fruit. He was originally just preparing to take control of the Ship of Terror, completely taking everything from Moria. Perona was completely stunned. Wasn't this done by the maid? She has never done the job of serving people, right? Is there a problem? William opened his eyes and looked at the other person with a frown. No problem, right away. The next day. Early in the morning, William yawned. I let go of the pillow in my arms that felt great, soft and comfortable. Lord William. Perona's pretty face turned red. A pair of big black eyes looked at each other aggrievedly. Is this guy really treating himself as a pillow? Morning. William smiled and looked at this petite legal loli who had just turned 18. He patted the other party's fair, delicate, pretty and pleasant face, and said with satisfaction, you performed well yesterday, and you will continue to work hard in the future. Perona's eyes widened. Her cute face turned red, and she stared at William angrily with her pink fists in her hands. How can this be done? She thought that was the end. This is the first time that I have served others like this. Yesterday when I was giving him a bath, I kept saying that I just wanted to bite him once. You can let yourself go. It was not easy for her to make up her mind. Not to mention that all the advantages have been taken advantage of, and she has been reduced to a pathetic pillow. Will you end up regretting it in the end? Because it feels so comfortable to hold Perona. William said of course. How could such a good pillow be let go like this? You dishonest idiot, I'll fight you. Perona was ashamed and angry. He glared at the other party fiercely, ignored the restraints of sea-stone handcuffs, and threw himself at him angrily. But it was quickly suppressed easily by William. It's getting late, it's time to get up. A long time. William, who had saved enough money, stood up and stretched his waist. Looking at Perona, whose face was a little red, her cheeks puffed out, and she was about to cry in grievance. In the little girl's overjoyed eyes, she casually threw the key to the sea-stone handcuffs to the other party, but, as a reward, this is the key to the sea-stone handcuffs. But as a pillow every day, this is your obligation. William said there. He has decided unilaterally. From now on, Perona is your own exclusive pillow. But until this girl truly returns home, for the sake of safety, he feels that he still has to put a sea-stone on her every night. HMPH. This guy is so bad. Watching the other party leave and go to wash up. Thinking of yesterday's experience, Perona couldn't help but feel hot and flushed. I just feel a little incredible. The other person's age is even younger than hers. For a moment, I was ashamed and annoyed, and made a face angrily. Lou, if it weren't for the fact that you look so handsome, I wouldn't want to do it. Such Sir William is not cute at all. Finished washing. William took Perona to the living room on the first floor of the castle. At this time, Dr. Hogba Gu, the former genius surgeon, had been waiting there for a long time. Moreover, there are dark circles under his eyes, which are a bit conspicuous. It's probably because he didn't rest at all last night. Lord William, meet William. Dr. Hogba Gu's eyes lit up. He couldn't wait to step forward and said excitedly, the ability of the repair fruit you gave me is so powerful. I have already repaired those rotting corpses. Oh, is it so? William raised his eyebrows. In order to verify the ability of the fruit just obtained. Dr. Hogba Gu, this guy, has obviously been busy all night. There is also the corpse of the swordsman Ryoma. I have completely repaired him and restored him to his original appearance. Hogba Gu grinned and said happily, as long as you use the ability of the shadow fruit to stuff the shadows, they will be resurrected immediately and they will definitely be more powerful than before. But that guy Oz is too big. I can't move it back. Give me some more time, and I will make it return to its appearance 500 years ago in a more perfect posture, and become the strongest zombie. Hey, are you going back to how you were before you were alive? Hear Hogba Gu say this. It's just that the spirit body left the body and followed Perona out, floating in the air. He couldn't help but widen his eyes. Hogba Gu, are you telling the truth? She knew the opponent's technical level clearly. Although his skills in sewing and repairing corpses were top-notch, he helped Master Moria create a large number of zombies. But it's impossible to make the corpse the same as before life, right? Is the ability to repair fruits so exaggerated? Hiss, 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 this is the ability to repair fruits that all doctors dream of, Perona. Hogcuba bared his fangs and smiled strangely. He held his head high and his chest high, full of pride. Using his technology, combined with the ability to repair fruits, now it is completely possible to restore those corpses to the greatest extent, even to their original appearance, to achieve the effect of being fake and real. It seems that you are well prepared. Looking at the confident Dr. Hogba Gu, William couldn't help but chuckle. Then I want to see how far the corpse you have repaired can reach. It just so happened that he was also ready to fully verify the ability of the shadow fruit. In order to further develop your own fruitful abilities, set future goals and directions. After all, William's belief in the shadow fruit's ability is by no means limited to this. On the contrary, there are infinite possibilities. What he wanted to do more than create ordinary zombies. It is to allow the shadows robbed from others to be able to move in the form of shadows without the need for animal or human corpses as carriers after being separated from the original body, and to be 100% obedient to one's orders. You can even let your shadow directly possess the target, turning the other person into your puppet, etc. But is it possible to do this? It remains to be verified. It's a pity that Sindori's body was cremated by me. Woo-woo. Dr. Hogba Gu thought of something. Suddenly there was no image there, and he burst into tears. Very sad. What he really regretted was, it's too late to get the ability of Paramesha repair fruit. Just a few days ago, he had already reluctantly cremated the corpse of his dream girl, Sindori, who was accidentally crushed by Moria. For this reason, Hogba Gu was sad for 3 days and 3 nights. Otherwise, he must ask Sir William to use the power of the shadow fruit to create the most perfect Sindori zombie for himself. Here we go again. Perona was speechless. Since Sindori's body was destroyed, this guy wasn't just sad for 3 days and 3 nights. On weekdays, when I think about it, I still cry from time to time like I am sick, without any image. Quote. The corners of William's mouth twitched. A licking dog who cannot lick and has a twisted mind. This is William's evaluation of Dr. Hobaku. It can be said that it started by turning the former dream girl Sindori into a zombie. This guy's psychology has begun to gradually become distorted. From the beginning, all he wanted was Sinduoli's person, not her heart at all. For Dr. Hogba Gu, all he needed was a replacement. Unfortunately, this replacement has been destroyed by Moria. No wonder this guy rebelled so easily. Rumble. Deep inside the castle, the huge cold storage is opened. Corpses appeared in front of William and Perona. Hiss, 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 are you shocked? It's different from the ugly and horrifying skeletons and mummies on the left. The corpses on the right are arranged in an orderly manner. It's so lifelike, not as rotten as imagined. It was as if he had just died and been frozen. Moreover, the leader was the tall corpse of Moria. Even the disastrous wounds caused by William's finger pistol have been repaired. In mint condition, Lord Moria, Perona's eyes widened. Full of excitement, he jumped forward. Tears are about to flow. Sir William, except for Moria's body, I have only repaired these zombie generals including the swordsman Ryoma and Captain John. Dr. Hogbagu pointed at these corpses and said with pride, we haven't had time to get the other corpses yet. After listening to William's suggestion just now, he was no longer obsessed with the destruction of Sindori's body. Instead, he was full of expectations for the future, thinking that after these days of busy work, Mr. William would completely trust him. Then apply for an advance of salary for the next 10 or 20 years. Go to the population auction house in Sabayati Archipelago and buy a female slave who is good at singing and dancing. Transform and train her into the perfect Sindori. You did a good job, it was indeed perfect. William nodded with satisfaction. Looking at the corpse of the swordsman Ryoma, it no longer had the previous skeletal posture, revealing a resolute and aging face. Even the trunk, limbs and other parts showed no traces of decay. It was as if he had really just died. The zombies created by implanting shadows in this way will definitely be able to maintain stronger combat power. He was somewhat looking forward to the appearance of Majin after he was completely repaired. Then, are you ready to resurrect these guys? Dr. Hogba Gu asked, full of expectation. Lord William, please help me resurrect Kumasi. Perona's eyes lit up. He immediately couldn't wait to beg William. At the same time, he deliberately turned his head and gestured towards Dr. Hogbaku, and said loudly, also, Hogbakuba, please remember to help me transform Kumasi, preferably in a kawaii way. Her favorite zombie toy, Kumasi, has become unable to move due to the loss of its shadow. Naturally, I hope William can recover it. Hiss, 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 I won't help you, you brat. Dr. Hogbagu was very proud and squeezed the other party. You third-rate fat otaku doctor. Perona bared her teeth angrily and glared at this guy. Nani, what did you say? Third-rate doctor. Smelly brat. Don't make any noise yet, be quiet. William waved his hand. Stop the quarrel between the two. He walked towards Moria's body. I'm going to do an interesting experiment. In the astonished eyes of Perona and Hogba Gu, you want it? Brush. Only the shadow at William's feet was seen. As if it had self-awareness, it flew directly up. At a speed visible to the naked eye, it sank into Moria's body. Brush. Without warning, Moria, who was already dead and her body was frozen, suddenly opened her eyes. Perona and Hogba Gu were shocked. Subconsciously retreated behind William. Watching there. Bang, bang. Moria, stood up. Stretching your body there, pumping your fists, swinging your legs. There was a strong wind pressure. Shave, suddenly. Moria stepped hard. At an astonishing speed, it disappeared in place like lightning. Appeared at the other end of the cold storage. If I control it myself, Moria's body will be able to exert considerable fighting power. Staring at Moria, William frowned, but, without real consciousness, it is better to plunder other people's shadows and make them into zombies. Through the ability of the shadow fruit. Able to implant other people's shadows into corpses. Create a zombie with independent personality. Logically speaking, the shadow of the ability user's own should be more effective. Moreover, maybe it can be made into the most advanced homits like Big Mom. It's useless, Lord William. Dr. Hogba Gu reminded there. Master Moria has tried this before, but he needs to inject his own shadow into the corpse, and he needs to be distracted all the time to control. This kind of puppet without self-awareness is not a real zombie at all. This is how Oz's body was brought back. He had seen it before. Moria attached her shadow to the demon Oz. Manipulate this ancient giant who has been dead for hundreds of years and place its huge body in the castle. Yeah, William raised his eyebrows, not surprised. It is impossible that Moria has not tried such an experiment. Bang, bang, he manipulated Moria's body to sit back down. A dark shadow separated directly from his body. Moria returned to her original appearance again. Not moving anymore. Do you want to turn Moria into a zombie? Dr. Hogba Gu said there. With the ability of the shadow fruit, only by injecting other people's shadows into the corpse can you create conscious zombies. That's not necessarily true. William was noncommittal. He believed that the power of the shadow fruit was much more than that. Big Mom's Paramesha soul fruit ability can use the user's own soul to create the most advanced homies. In the same way, the shadow fruit may not be able to create the most advanced zombies. Just take some time to develop your fruit abilities in depth. Everything is possible. Dead people can control it, but what about living people? William's eyes were burning. He looked at Hogba Gu and Perona. He directly selected Perona as the target of the experiment. Perona, stand still and don't move. Lord William. Perona was shocked, but there was no time to dodge. In the blink of an eye, under William's control, the swift shadow clone had already arrived in front of her. Possessed by a puppet, it was like a fluid, and everything came from its open mouth. Ah, well, Perona exclaimed. His whole body was shocked and turned pale with shock. My body. As if he had lost control of his body, he moved involuntarily. Came in front of William. Negative ghost. Raise your right hand. A translucent, somewhat eerie ghost. It flew out from Perona's palm and floated in the air. Gulu, you can actually use Lord Moria's abilities so quickly. Perona felt as if her body was out of control and was being manipulated by invisible forces. She couldn't break free at all. Perona's face was full of shock and she couldn't believe it. Moria can also do such a thing. She had seen Moria use her shadow to manipulate corpses or living people. But how long did it take for William to gain the power of the shadow fruit? You can already use it so skillfully. Sir William, you are indeed powerful, and you are worthy of being chosen by the shadow fruit. Dr. Hogba Gu was also a little surprised. With a flattering smile on his face, and while flattering him, he reminded William, use the ability of the shadow fruit to control other living people and use its fruit abilities. It is indeed possible, but it requires just be very skilled. Furthermore, if the target's willpower is too strong, it may break free. Even if you can't break free, if you resist during the battle, it will still have a great impact. Is that so? William nodded. The shadow clone was taken back. Released the hold on Perona. For a guy like Moria who has lost his spirit and is completely decadent, there is no need to use such a troublesome way to manipulate others by using shadow clones. Because normally, no matter how strong the pirates in the first half of the Grand Line are, they cannot be stronger than Gecko Moria himself. There is really no need to be distracted by controlling these ability users to fight. You can simply use the Shadow Mage to easily crush the target. It is simple and crude. Moreover, Moria, who stayed in the first half of the Grand Line all year round and hid in this Devil's Foggy Sea, rarely encountered those with relatively powerful abilities. But Moria didn't know that at all. This is where the true value of this ability lies. This is an unexpected surprise. The corners of William's mouth raised and his eyes flickered. There are some special fruit abilities in this sea, but they are quite useful. Even if it can only be manipulated briefly, it can also play an unexpected role. What's more, just wait until your strength reaches a higher level and develop the ability of the shadow fruit in depth. It may not be impossible to do it, just like manipulating the zombies created by implanting shadows. Turn others into puppets who obey your orders. At this time, not far from the Devil's Sea, the most famous shipbuilding island in the Grand Line, the capital of the Seven Waters. In a dark room, several figures of different shapes gathered there. If William were here, he would definitely be able to recognize these people. Surprisingly, they were all CP9 members sent to the water capital by Spandam and asked to be undercover next to Fishman Tom's disciple Iceberg to investigate the whereabouts of Pluton's blueprints. Rob Lucci, Kaku, Bluno, Khalifa. They are all his companions who have been training hard every day at the CP training base with him since they were young. Lucci, Kaku, who had just turned 18 and had a long, square nose, asked helplessly, "Such a big thing has happened, are we going to continue to lurk here? Although our identity may be leaked at any time due to the defection of William, that guy has not shown up so far. It seems that he has no intention of causing trouble." Rob Lucci crossed his arms. He leaned against the wall and said calmly, "What it means above is that we should continue to stay here to investigate the information on Pluton's design. In addition, it is to prevent the Pluton design from falling into the hands of the traitor William. I heard that our new commander is Spandam's nephew and Spandam's cousin. The former CP5 commander is called Spandam." Bluno, who was tall, had black hair combed like horns, and had a fierce face, said helplessly, "He's a dandy guy than Spandam. We are really unlucky, although the officer Spandam died. But the top leaders of the world government are not prepared to give them, members of CP9, a chance to rise to power." Another CP9 officer airborne, and he is still a member of the Spanda family. Because of the murder of Spandam and Spandam, that guy may not have good senses towards us CP9 members who were closer to William in the past. It's unbelievable. Khalifa, who has long blonde hair and wears rimless glasses, said softly, "That guy William actually did such a thing. Khalifa, I know you have a good relationship with him, but you have to pay attention to your position." Lucci's face was expressionless, and he warned coldly, "If your father hadn't been an agent of CP9, I'm afraid you would have been eliminated by the higher-ups. Maybe our new commander is deliberately planning to take revenge on that guy William, and is always ready to find fault with you. Not only Khalifa, but also Kaku and Bluno, remember all of you. Now, that guy is no longer our companion. He said so. It's for the good of Khalifa, Bluno, Kaku and others. After all, they are killing machines trained by the world government. If you have too many feelings and thoughts that you shouldn't have, they will be directly erased by the higher authorities. They, the elite agents of CP9, know better than anyone else how terrifying, desperate and terrifying the behemoth world government is. There is no thought of resistance at all. I see. Sadness flashed in Khalifa's eyes. I was even more worried, but I didn't dare to show it. The young and handsome figure who always seemed calm and high-spirited flashed through my mind. William, is this your choice? We have been together day and night for these years. She and William can be said to be very close. Although he always keeps saying it, he just treats him as a younger brother. But in fact, deep in Khalifa's heart, there is already the shadow of the other party. But as killing machines trained by the world government, they are not allowed to have emotions, let alone control their own destiny. In particular, the two are both members of CP9 and are strictly prohibited from falling in love in private. She could only bury that feeling in her heart. Conqueror's hockey, that guy is hiding too deep. Kaku was filled with emotion. In his impression, William was 1 year younger than him. Although he has been an out-and-out monster since he was a child, he was born with the powerful observation hockey awakened. He is a genius as famous as Lucci and is ranked as the CP9 Gemini. But the Conqueror's qualifications have never been revealed. I heard that in this unprecedentedly bad Enies lobby incident, the opponent once used Conqueror's hockey directly, stunning many Marine soldiers and government personnel. It can be said that countless people were shocked. Even their CP9 companions who had grown up together were a little stunned. Unbelievable. If I meet that guy again, I have to kill him with my own hands. Lucci looked gloomy. A cold murderous intent flashed in his eyes. He clenched his fists tightly, with veins popping out, and gritted his teeth and said, "That fool, how dare you play tricks on me?" He has been hailed as a genius since he was a child and has always been extremely conceited. Facing William, who was several years younger, he was able to fight on an equal footing with him. The two are tied as the most shining twin stars of CP9 in the past 800 years. The comparison is often made, but considering William's age, it is often thought that Rob Lucci's talent may be slightly inferior to his opponent. He was already very unhappy. I heard about it at Enies lobby. Except for the sudden reveal of Conqueror's hockey. Not only were the CP9 members who stayed at Enies lobby such as Jabra, Fukuro, and the Lion Nudori were easily crushed, but even the Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral Satsuma, who was responsible for escorting Devil Fruit, was defeated by it. The strength shown by the other party completely exceeded his usual performance, as if he had hidden a lot of strength. This makes Lucci, who is arrogant and considers himself no weaker than others, how can he accept this? Every time I think about the scene where I had a sparring session with William, the other party was pretending to be acting, while I, who was completely unaware, was played around like a fool. Lucci couldn't help but feel a little angry. I just felt that the guy must be laughing at me at that time. For him, who has always thought highly of himself, nothing could be more humiliating than this. Lucci, calm down. Bluno was a little helpless and reminded there. I heard that one of the devil fruits that was stolen by him has the rare Zone Phantom Beast ability. I'm afraid that guy's strength will become even stronger. In fact, whether it's them, CP9 members, or world government, they all believed that the real reason for William's defection was probably to seize the Phantom Beast fruit. After all, although the other party once wanted to shirk the undercover mission arranged by Spandam. But it would be unwise to kill his boss and defect just because of this. You know, hell, William and Rob Lucci are both geniuses that world government is focusing on, and their futures can be said to be promising. Moreover, maybe that guy accidentally learned the news that the devil fruit was going to be escorted to Enies lobby, and he had the idea of taking it at all costs. That's why I deliberately shirked and was unwilling to perform the tasks assigned by the above. Quote. Hear the words. Lucci's eyes narrowed sharply, and his expression kept changing. Subconsciously he clenched his fists, gritted his teeth and refused to admit defeat. Fruit ability does not represent everything. If you are not convinced, you will be unconvinced. But his heart couldn't help but sink. I felt a bucket of cold water pouring from my head, completely calming down. A species of phantom beast rarer than Logia, Lucci certainly knew what that meant. In particular, he was arranged by the world government to go to the Water City and work undercover as a boatman at the Carrera Company. In order to avoid exposing his identity, he not only had to hide his strength, but also couldn't train in front of others. Even the chances of fighting powerful enemies are bound to become less and less. The gap between them is likely to become wider and wider. I hope we won't become enemies. Kaku sighed helplessly. He is only 1 year older than William, and the two have been training together for a long time since they were 5 or 6 years old, motivating each other to grow. The relationship is still very good. Instead, I got to know William better. That's a guy who's all about strength. When I was at the CP training base, the level of effort was simply mind-numbing. He didn't miss any free time at all. Even if he was chatting with them, he still devoted some of his energy to training. Careful and thoughtful, he is ruthless to any enemy. Therefore, it has the nickname, Black Prison, which scares countless people. If that guy becomes an enemy, it will be quite a headache. Bluno, how's your bar ready? Take a deep breath. Try not to think about it so much. Lucci regained his composure and asked Bluno directly. They are not the bold guy like William, and they cannot seek death to resist the behemoth world government. We can only honestly complete the orders given by above. Still under renovation. Bluno responded. We can officially open in half a month. What about you, Khalifa? Bingshan is preparing to recruit a secretary. Khalifa pushed up her glasses and said, tomorrow I will go to Carrera Company to apply for a job, and strive to become his secretary and be close to him. Then let's do this for now, follow the original plan, and try to complete the task as soon as possible. Dismissal. Turn around and leave. Lucci's cold eyes revealed indescribable perseverance. Since he couldn't practice in front of others during the day, he would double his practice at night. William, Rob Lucci, will never lose to you. Shadow Mage. In the mist without seeing the sun. There is something eerie and terrifying about the ship. A somewhat messy coast. Brush. A black figure kept moving there. Flying bat. The next moment, that dark figure. Suddenly there were a lot of bats. Flapping Ling-Ling. They flapped their wings together and flew into the air. It swept to more than 10 meters away. Combined into human form again. Shadow Warrior. A low drink. On the rocks not far away. William, who was 20 or 30 meters away from the shadow clone, instantly switched places with the shadow clone. As if teleporting, the shadow clone appeared directly in the air. Moonwalk. White smoke bursts. He couldn't help but step on the air. Accompanied by bursts of air explosions, the whole person was constantly stuck in the air. Devil wings. In the blink of an eye, a large number of shadow bats flew by. They continued to gather and turned into huge black wings, appearing behind William. The demonic black wings flapped slightly there. Woo-hoo-hoo. Accompanied by fierce wind pressure, William no longer stepped into the atmosphere, but directly jumped into the sky. The black wings were as if they were born with him, and he could control them easily. The whole person is flying freely in the sky. Brush. At an astonishing speed, it flew around the entire terrifying ship. Too fast to see clearly. It's Lord William. It's really amazing. It's so fast, I can't see clearly at all. Island boat. The appearance of each one is no different from that of a real living person, and the zombies who are busy there are raising their heads. Looking at the flying figure in the sky, I was filled with wonder. But no one is surprised. Because this is not the first time I have seen it. This adult has been trained like this. Ha. I'm so exhausted. I cannot make it. On the coastline, 2 figures, one large and one small, were sweating profusely and running desperately. Sweating like rain, I was panting from exhaustion. Astonishingly, they were Dr. Hogba Gu and Perona. Already sweating profusely, but I didn't dare to stop. You two, don't be lazy. High in the air, William looked down at them and said with a sneer, otherwise, I will demote you to the lowest level of zombie soldiers. Just like those zombies, you will work non-stop day and night, responsible for transforming this island ship. No, I don't want to work like that every day, woo-woo. Perona's face turned pale. Gritting his teeth, he continued running. Ha. Staggeringly followed Perona. After 2 months of training, he seemed to have lost a lot of weight. Dr. Hogbagu, who was only slightly chubby, almost cried without tears. Why do I, a ship's doctor, have to follow the training? Stop talking nonsense, William said coldly. A ship's doctor who can't even protect himself. Do you want to be the first to be targeted by the enemy in the battle and be killed easily? Weak people are not qualified to survive on this ship. If you don't want to be a cadre, I can let your shadow take your place. William's callous voice. It made Perona and Hogba Gu go numb. I can only bite the bullet, continue training there, and run as hard as I can. Exercise your physical fitness. But in fact, compared to the weak chicken 2 months ago. Although the strength of the two people cannot be said to have undergone earth-shaking changes. But his physical fitness seems to have increased significantly, and his combat effectiveness has been greatly improved. He was pulled up by William early in the morning and started a morning exercise that lasted for 2 or 3 hours, running at full strength around the ship of terror. Round after round, he still didn't fall down. He hasn't drained his energy yet. Snort. William said no more, flying over their heads. Return to the coast where I originally trained. Unknowingly, 2 months have passed since he killed Moria and became the new boss of this terrifying ship. And as I mastered the ability of Paramesha Shadow Fruit, I became more and more skilled and handy. One after another, the zombies that lost their shadows and became corpses were resurrected by William one after another. But it is different from the original terrifying, ugly, and completely underworld-style zombie army. William directly eliminated the defective products that were rotten, missing arms and legs, and even physically weak. Only those corpses that were restored to their original appearance by Dr. Hogba Gu were left. Although they were full of death and had no breath of life, their appearance was the same as that of living people. Resurrected by the implanted shadow. Let them start working day and night. Because William is planning to completely transform this island ship. Turn it into a mobile war fortress. As for the starting energy, the shadows naturally come from the pirates and businessmen who were directly imprisoned by him. But, for Dr. Hogba Gu and Perona, it's not that perfect at all. Because, these days, they were forced to train by William every day. A strict practice plan was specially formulated, stipulating that the two of them should go from morning to night, morning, noon, afternoon. Do high-intensity training every day. At the end of the day, the training time is more than 8 hours. Make them so tired that they want to lie flat on their backs. But facing William's inhumane punishment, he didn't dare to be lazy. Of course, William did not expect the two of them to become powerful generals and emperors. But as the only cadre on board the terrifying ship, he is not only comparable to generals but also disasters. At least the level of the core cadres of the 4 emperors group must be there, right? You can't just kill him in a few strikes. Compared to Dr. Hogba Gu, who has little potential. For Perona, William was a little more demanding. At only 18 years old, she is not bad at talent and has greater potential. She was spoiled by being raised as a daughter by Moria. His temper is too lazy, so he can't do it without working hard. Shadow Revolution. All of a sudden, the wings behind his back disappeared. It turned into the shadow of William himself. Armed color, a retractable machine gun. William's eyes were stern, staring straight ahead at the huge and extremely solid reef 8 or 9 meters away, which is more than 10 meters high. The fists wrapped around armament hockey turned dark. And kept waving in the air. Blast out. Shuasha. A jaw-dropping scene happened. The shadows of his arms stretched at a speed visible to the naked eye. And his arms were like rubber, extending out like lightning. Ha. Turned into afterimages all over the sky. Carrying a powerful impact, continuously bombarding the rocks ahead. Boom, boom. Smoke and dust filled the air. Debris flew. A huge rock as big as a hill. Like a block of tofu, it was easily blown apart. It makes people stunned. Paw. William jumped high into the air. Stepping through the atmosphere at an astonishing speed, he rushed out. After crossing the inland sea of the island ship, we came to a dilapidated and large ghost ship that was just floating nearby and was hundreds of meters long. The telescopic giant's battle axe. The shadow of the right foot. Instantly stretched there, and it continues to expand, just like the shadow of a giant's feet. Brush. The next moment, something incredible happened. William's right leg, which was raised high, also stretched and expanded. The soles of the feet, which were originally the same as those of normal humans, miraculously transformed into the size of giants. Wrapped around the pitch-black hockey, jet black and shiny. Toward the abandoned ghost ship below. Cracked down hard and violently. Boom boom. Chapter 11. Crash. Woo-hoo-hoo. The water splashed and the sea boiled. An astonishing wave of air swept across. The enlarged right leg followed the shadow and instantly returned to its original shape. I have to say that the shadow revolution is indeed exaggerated. William smiled. For the past 2 months, he had been on the ship of terror. Not only did he hone the armament hockey he had already mastered, he became even more proficient. Moreover, he has mastered the basic abilities of the shadow fruit and can use them as he wishes. Even relying on the fruit's ability to perfectly combine his own physical skills, his combat effectiveness doubled and he developed a series of combat moves. Shadow Revolution. This is one of the bug abilities of Paramesha shadow fruit. Since the shadow is connected to the entity, if the entity changes, the shadow will also change. On the contrary, if the shadow changes, theoretically the entity will also change. Taking advantage of this, William, who can freely change the shape of his shadow, can change the length of his body through the change of his shadow, just like a rubber man. It easily simulates the series of combat moves of the future pirate King Luffy. You can even make your shadow sneak into other people's shadows. Then control the target's shadow, change the shape of the shadow, manipulate or even crush the opponent. Although it doesn't have the exaggerated elasticity of rubber, it can be said to be the ability to master the Paramesha telescopic fruit in disguise. William chuckled. He is a user with the ability of the shadow fruit. It makes sense to fight with imagination, right? After all, humans in ancient times relied on their imagination to gradually defeat birds of prey, giant beasts, and even sea kings that were far larger and more powerful than themselves, and became world hegemons. These days, through constant testing, I have verified my fruit ability. What really surprised William? It's not about manipulating shadows into wings so that one can fly, or plundering other people's shadows and implanting them into corpses to create zombies. But a shadow revolution, the most exaggerated ability of the shadow fruit. This is because when William, a person with abilities, affects himself through the shadow revolution, there is no need to consider whether the body can withstand those changes. Therefore, he can fight through the shadow revolution as he wishes. Even if the arms are lengthened to an extremely exaggerated degree. It won't hurt yourself. But, it's different for others. For example, Majin Oz. Zombies like it are dead after all. Moreover, his body is strong enough. As long as he does not exceed the limit that he can withstand, his body tissue will not be damaged. Even if you use the shadow revolution to lengthen its limbs and twist its body, as a zombie it will not feel pain and can naturally be easily manipulated. But there is no way to bend his fist directly through the shadow revolution. Force his fist to turn, otherwise it will directly cause his fracture. If it is a normal living person, let alone it. It is conceivable that an average person can use his shadow to lengthen his body by half a meter, or even 1 meter. Or, just let its shadow bend and fold irregularly. What are the consequences? Just thinking about it makes my head tingle. Brush. A pair of demonic black wings emerged from William's back. With a slight shake, the whole person swept towards the terrifying ship at an astonishing speed. Retractable machine gun. On the shores of the terror ship, William kept punching out with both fists. Under the shadow revolution, the arms continued to extend at an alarming speed. Bombarded together. Boom, boom. Loud noises continued. A large amount of gravel spattered and smoke billowed. But William's attacks did not stop. The flexible snake. Next moment, William's eyes narrowed. His ever-changing shadow actually took a direct turn. The outstretched fist wrapped around armament hockey was like a snake playing, constantly changing directions. Folding and turning at incredible angles. Continuously violent bombardment of the rocks on the shore. Jaw-dropping. Boom boom. Loud noises continued. Smoke and dust billowed. Call. A long time. Constantly stretching and turning, the dizzying fists all contracted back. William stopped his attack and took a long breath. This kind of power that can be manipulated freely is really addictive. Looking at the messy coast, he couldn't help clenching his fists and showing an excited smile. Human bones. If you dare to fold or bend it like this, it will most likely break. Unless it is like Paramesha rubber fruit, or people with abilities in the form of Renren fruit phantom beast species Nika, and some special demon fruit powers. As a person with the ability of Paramesha shadow fruit, when he used the shadow revolution to change himself, he had no concerns about this. His body will directly follow the changes of the shadow, and he will not feel pain at all, will not be hurt by it, and will not strain his muscles, bones, flesh and other tissues. This is the most buggy part of the shadow fruit. In addition, he has practiced 6 types of physical skills such as finger pistol, paper arts, and iron body since he was a child, and has also mastered the secret of life return. The flexibility of all aspects of William's body tissue has reached an astonishing level. The upper limit that he can operate through the shadow revolution has been greatly increased. You can simply let him fight as he pleases. Of course, the shadow revolution is not without limits. It is impossible to say that if you make the shadow as big as the island, the whole person will really become that big. The performance of abilities is closely related to the physical quality of the ability user. Once it exceeds the limit that your body can currently bear, the body's tissues will collapse directly, with serious consequences. Shadow revolution. Complete enlargement. Rested for a while. William clenched his fists. With a stern look in his eyes, he gave a low shout. Among the large number of zombie soldiers who were working, there were also the sweaty Perona and Hobakugu who had just run not far away and looked at them in disbelief. Swipe, his shadow was enlarging there at a speed visible to the naked eye. And William's entire figure also underwent incredible changes. As the shadow grew larger, it expanded. Boom, in the blink of an eye. A figure no less than 20 meters tall stood there. William's veins bulged all over his body, his face turned red, and his aura was astonishing. With his current limit, if he doesn't swallow other people's shadows to strengthen himself. If you rely solely on the shadow revolution to increase your body size, you will only be able to transform into the form of an ordinary giant at best. If it is any larger, it will strain your own muscles, bones and other tissues. But even so, it is already quite astonishing. Have you reached your limit? Shave. William, who was like a giant, had a hoarse voice. He stepped hard and rushed out like a cannonball. Tempest kick. His huge right foot was as fast as lightning. Overwhelmed the atmosphere. Kicked out hard. In an instant, an extremely violent wind pressure arose. It swept away all the gravel, dust, and vegetation around it. Call out. In a blink. In the horrified eyes of Perona and Hogba Gu. A crescent-shaped, huge slashing wave appeared out of thin air. It was as fast as lightning and shot straight out of the air. It hit the sea in the distance. Unstoppable. Boom boom. Crashing. Crashing. Ah, that is. The sea was cut open. Gulu. What a power this is. It's just a monster. Looking at the sea that was cut open for several kilometers and slowly restored there. Those zombie soldiers who were unable to resist William's orders and were ordered to work day and night, as well as Perona and Hobakugu who were training there. Everyone was full of shock and stayed there. Everyone couldn't help but open their mouths. Couldn't close it for a long time. Gulu. That guy, is he really only 17 years old? Perona couldn't help but swallow her saliva. She couldn't imagine that William was only 17 years old. He is 1 year younger than himself who just turned 18. It's so strong. It's unbelievable. Hiss, 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 you are worthy of Lord William. Dr. Hogba Gu's eyes shone with excitement. In terms of ability development, he has surpassed Lord Moria. With the ability of the shadow fruit, coupled with the powerful physical skills developed in world government, Lord William is fully qualified to replace Moria, the 7 warlords of the sea. He had already made up his mind to follow Hell William. After acquiring the ability of Paramesha Repair Fruit, I was even more impressed by the opponent's courage. Now, he has witnessed the other party's powerful power with his own eyes. How can this not make Hobubagu excited? The more powerful Mr. William shows, doesn't it prove that the future of their team is limitless and the more correct his choice is? Still a long way to go. William has been restored to his original state. His face was calm and not very proud. With his current strength, if he directly relied on the shadow revolution to enlarge himself and transform into a giant, the consumption would be extraordinary. If you really go all out, you can maintain your giant form for a long time and engage in high-intensity fierce battles. It is estimated that he will not be able to hold on for long, and his physical strength will be squandered to a great extent. More exercise is also needed. Of course, if you just use the shadow revolution to fight locally, it will become huge. There is no pressure on him. Easy. Furthermore, Shadow Revolution is just one of the abilities of the shadow fruit. Shadow Mage. William's eyes narrowed. The black shadow stood up and swelled. It turned into a humanoid shadow, consistent with his own body shape. A pair of huge black fist marks were waved out in an instant. Boom, boom. The shadows of fists kept coming. Amidst the flying smoke and dust. Lots of gravel flying. The materialized shadow fist continued to extend and contract, hitting the rocks ahead crazily. And, don't keep turning. Sometimes like a greedy snake. Turn left and right to get around the block. Hit targets from incredible blind spots. Maneuver with ease. Dazzling. Shadow Giant. William crossed his arms and shouted lowly. Brush. Next moment, the shadow mage beside him flew out. The figure, which was about the same size as the main body and about 3 meters tall, suddenly expanded again. The extremely dark figure kept enlarging in size at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a dark shadow giant. Tempest kick. The giant right foot kicked out like lightning. Woo-hoo-hoo. A loud roar broke through the air. A huge crescent-shaped slash appeared out of thin air. Phew, in an instant, the power of castration continued unabated. It hit the sea in the distance. Boom boom, crash. Splash room. A huge trench appeared. It was indescribably shocking. Coupled with the ability of the shadow fruit, the combat power exerted by the shadow clone is indeed extremely powerful. William touched his chin and evaluated. Furthermore, the shadow mage has advantages that the original body does not have. He is not afraid of any physical attacks and can ignore damage. Even because he is a shadow, he can change his form at will and be unpredictable. On the contrary, he can surprise and make things difficult for him. It's hard to defend yourself. Although the shadow clone can currently only be enlarged to the form of a giant, it is not yet possible to enlarge the shadow to be as exaggerated as a real island. But he believes that as he continues to further develop his fruit abilities, he will definitely be able to make the shadow mage even bigger. Demonstrate stronger combat effectiveness. Thump. Thump. Finally completed the training tasks set by William. Early in the morning, I was forced to run 20 laps around the island ship. 2 figures, one big and one small, dripping with sweat, were so tired that they collapsed there, panting. Unwilling to stand up. Phew, I'm so exhausted, I finally finished running. Perona was sweating profusely and panting. She had tears in her eyes, remembering the days when Moria was there so much. At least, that adult won't force them to exercise like this every day. 20 laps, almost killed me. Dr. Hogbagu fell there, weakly shouting, "Water, I want to drink water." 2 adults, please wait a moment, right now. A ferocious-looking zombie soldier who was on standby hurriedly brought the water glasses to the 2 of them. But except for his skin being a little dark and dry, he is just like a normal human being. After being repaired and transformed by Paramesha repair fruit, although they are still afraid of seawater and salt, they are not afraid of seawater or salt entering their bodies as long as they are not disemboweled or soaked directly in seawater. Because although they can still open their mouths to speak, the lower part of their throats are completely blocked. You two, you have to work hard. William wiped his sweat and said calmly, I have already taught you all the 6 style training methods. Don't let me down. Yes, Lord William. Both Perona and Hogcuba couldn't help but look solemn. Although there was a lot of pressure, William showed 6 moves. But it made the 2 of them jealous. If it can be mastered. Not to mention being able to become as powerful as the other person. But at least, I can protect myself. I don't know when I will be able to fully master all 6 postures. Perona is a little yearning for it. Don't be impatient. William touched her head and said with a smile, as long as you can honestly follow the practice plan I have set for you and train unremittingly, as your physical fitness continues to improve, I will have a way to speed up your practice. Real. Perona's eyes lit up, looking longingly at this adult. As a doctor, Dr. Hogbagu was also a little surprised. Did it use some kind of medicine? Of course not. William chuckled and said, the power of the shadow fruit is more than that. But if you, a doctor, are interested, you can develop in this area in your spare time and study genetic medicines and so on. Speaking of which, he proposed to Dr. Hogbagu. What's the power of the shadow fruit? Perona was confused. Although the plundered shadow, after being implanted into other people's bodies, can only enhance people's strength for a short period of time, it cannot last for long. William didn't care about it and said bluntly, but on the other hand, it can also allow oneself to possess the other party's long-term training in disguise in a short period of time, and the combat instinct and corresponding experience have long been integrated into the physical memory. So, you just need to keep training hard and understanding in those short 2 or 3 minutes, and maybe you can gain something. This was a major discovery he made after repeated verification. The ability of the shadow fruit is indeed quite buggy. It can be said to be a training accelerator, and it is also a shared version. Moreover, unlike ordinary people who fuse shadows, they can only gain a short-term increase in combat power, but in disguise have the combat instinct that the target has developed over a long period of time. As a user with the ability of the shadow fruit, he can even obtain the deeper memories of the target's life through the plundered shadow. So that's it. Perona and Hogba Gu suddenly realized. If the plundered shadow is put into the body of a living person, it can enhance the opponent's combat effectiveness. Of course they know this very well. Moria relied on this ability to crush William and imprison him in the dungeon. But I really didn't expect that other people's shadows could have such potential effects. Immediately I couldn't help but feel overjoyed and a little excited. Don't be too happy too early. William warned there. Although I can help you find a master of the 6th form of Grandmaster, plunder his shadow, and speed up your understanding of the skills of the 6th form. But your physical fitness must be able to keep up. So, we still need to strengthen training. Yes, Lord William. We will work hard. Clang. Inside the gorgeous castle. The huge ice house was opened. A ghastly scene was revealed. Frozen corpses were lined up there. It makes one's scalp tingle. Lord William, do you want to create new zombies? Hogbagu asked curiously as he moved the heavy lighting equipment. In recent days, they have not encountered any targets that strayed into this sea area. And the shadows looted from the imprisoned pirates and business travelers have almost been used up. They were all implanted into ordinary zombie soldiers by William. It is said that those people are too weak and the shadow cannot meet expectations. Only worthy of being the weakest zombie soldier. No, I just want to do an experiment. William shook his head, staring at these corpses with burning eyes. Many of these corpses from all over the world were strong men with considerable strength during their lifetimes. Among them, there is not only the body of Gecko Moria, the 7 warlords of the sea himself. There are also the corpses of Wano Kuni's former famous dragon-slaying samurai and swordsman Ryoma, who once belonged to the Rocks pirate, the infamous Captain John, and other strong men. After being repaired by Hogba Gu, their bodies have been completely restored. Experiment. Perona and Hogbaguba were curious. But when he saw the other party, he didn't say anything, so he had to obediently set up the equipment there and turn on the light source. For a moment, he watched William pick up the body of the swordsman Ryoma and place it in front of the bright light. A black shadow appeared there. The two of them were a little dazed. Sir William, do you want to rob the shadow of the dead? Unexpectedly, the other party wanted to rob the dead man's shadow. I heard Master Moria say that the shadow of a dead person is like a corpse that has lost its soul. It does not have any consciousness and cannot be effective. Hogba Gu reminded there. The shadow of the dead can be cut out. But it's like losing a soul, even if it's placed inside those corpses, it can't move. There is no way to create a conscious zombie. Why do you think that only the shadow of a living person has value? An incredible scene happened. As if tearing off a shadow-like sticker stuck to the ground, William pulled up the shadow of Ryoma's corpse. Looking at the outline of the corpse of the swordsman Ryoma, without any struggle, he said lightly, "Don't be misled by the so-called common sense, it will only limit your vision and imagination. Moria is I'm too arrogant, so I can't give full play to the power of the shadow fruit." Immediately afterwards, he manipulates his shadow. Let it be directly visualized and turned into a pair of sharp scissors. You're welcome to cut out the shadow of Ryoma's corpse. Brush. In the astonished eyes of Perona and Hogba Gu. He directly put Ryoma's shadow into his body. Buzz. My whole body shook slightly. Seemingly enlightened, he stood there with his eyes closed. This is. Hogbagu's pupils shrank sharply. I understand, Sir William wants to obtain the swordsmanship of the swordsman Ryoma during his lifetime. Perona suddenly realized and cried out. Next moment, William opened his eyes. With a stern look, he took Ryoma's sword. The famous sword Chu Shui ranked among the 21 great swords. Rang, cold light flashed, and the black knife with jagged patterns was unsheathed. An extremely fierce aura burst out from him. The hair on Hogkubagu's and Perona's faces stood up in horror. It seemed that what he was facing was not the usual Sir William. Rather, he is a great swordsman who has been famous for a long time. Shadow Mage. In the surprised eyes of the two people, a black shadow flew out from William's feet. Shadow Warrior. Not long after, his entire body disappeared in an instant, replaced by a dark shadow. And the shadow that had already flitted outside the castle. Replaced position. In the open space outside the castle, William still had his eyes closed. He stood there for a long time, motionless. Nobody knows. At this moment, in his mind, showing one incredible scene after another. A swordsman genius born in Wano-kuni, Shimotsuki clan. He has been taught by famous teachers since he was a child. He has studied hard day and night and practiced diligently. When he was young, he was arrogant and high-spirited, constantly challenging the famous swordsman of Wano-kuni. He even killed the flying dragon that caused trouble in the sky over Wano-kuni and attacked the town, and was known as the dragon-slaying samurai. Even when facing those powerful enemies, he never flinched, but became more courageous as he fought, constantly breaking through his own limits and defeating powerful enemies one after another. In the battle with those strong ones, although he often won, he was inevitably injured. He also received permanent scars on his face and lost one eye, becoming a one-eyed warrior. He was deeply ashamed and reflected on himself all the time. I think this is caused by my lack of spiritual practice. Instead of relaxing in the glory and adulation, he honed his sword skills even harder. Finally, in his prime, he became a master of swordsmanship. Refined saber Chu Shui into a black sword. Became a veritable great swordsman. Any enemy was quickly chopped to the ground in a flash, easily ending the battle. Admiral, who once fought against the naval headquarters alone, single-handedly stopped the world government and pirates who wanted to invade Wano-kuni. He never failed in his life and became famous at home and abroad. Lord William. Wait until Hobakuba and Perona ran out of the castle one after another. William, who was standing there, suddenly opened his eyes. Is this the past of the swordsman Ryoma? His eyes were stern. The whole person has an astonishing aura and is somewhat sharp. It was as sharp as an eagle, making it impossible to look directly at it. Stomping your feet, stepping into the atmosphere, he surged into the sky. Holding the black knife Chu Shui in his hand, he suddenly drew a swift trajectory. Itoryu Filong, call out. A loud roar broke through the air. A fiery slash. It transformed into a swift flying dragon, where it spread its teeth and claws and galloped out like lightning. Boom! Rocks flew and smoke filled the air. A ravine of about 10 meters or so appeared there. Although the scene was far less than before, William used Shadow Revolution to make himself huge and then unleashed the Tempest Kick. But it's also frightening. This is Flying Slash. Witnessing this amazing scene, Hogbagu and Perona could not help but open their mouths, a little shocked. In these days, William has never shown any sword skills in front of them. The swordsman Ryoma has been dead for so long, can his shadow also increase his combat power? It seems that my guess was correct. A tall figure. Falling steadily to the ground. William, who was standing with a knife, showed an excited smile. The shadow of a dead person, although it may be because the host is dead, is not as effective as the shadow of a living person, and cannot enhance the exaggerated combat power. But it allows me to obtain some of the impressive memories of the other person's life. Through Ryoma's shadow, he received part of the other person's memories during his lifetime. Not only did he acquire the swordsmanship of the Shimotsuki clan, but he also acquired the training methods and related experience of emission. He already had a rough idea of how to become a real black sword. If you practice it, you will get twice the result with half the effort. Brush. A humanoid shadow flew out of the body and flew straight towards the castle. But William didn't stop. Let it return to the corpse of the swordsman Ryoma. Hiss, 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 it's so amazing. Hogbagu came forward. Full of excitement, he grinned and said, I didn't expect the shadow of a dead person to have such an effect. Master William, you are so amazing. Perona is filled with adoration. At the same time, it's also exciting. Moria collected the corpses of many powerful men during her lifetime. This means that William can fully acquire the physical skills and swordsmanship of these powerful men during their lifetimes. Maybe even she and Hogba Gu could benefit from it. It's truly an unexpected surprise. William nodded. You know, he has never practiced any sword skills. But by fusing Ryoma's shadow, he can acquire the advanced skills of swordsmanship and emission passed down from generation to generation by the Shimotsuki clan. Instantly become a swordsman who can use flying slashes. I almost forgot, there is something more worth looking forward to. Suddenly, William thought of something and chuckled. Maybe we can solve the mystery of the treasure left by Captain John during his lifetime. Undeniable, on this sea, your own strength is the most important thing. But if you want to quickly develop your power, you can't do it without money. As a time traveler, relying on the information in my mind about treasures such as Sky Island, Golden Land and Giant Clam Island, as well as the corpses of these powerful men may have memory information about where their treasures were buried during their lifetimes. There should be no need to worry about the financial resources needed to develop one's power. Really, Captain John's treasure. Hearing this, Perona and Hogbaguba couldn't help but their eyes shone. Legend has it that Captain John loved money as much as his life. He collected a large amount of treasures during his lifetime and buried them in unknown places. There is a lot of false information about Captain John's treasure circulating on this sea. To this day, no one can solve the mystery of Captain John's treasure. But Lord William was able to obtain some relevant memories by relying on the shadow of Captain John's body. Maybe we can really find the whereabouts of John's treasure. Just try and you will find out, William said with a smile. Sheath the black sword and autumn water. He took Perona and Hogbaguba back to the cold storage of the castle. Place the corpse of the swordsman Ryoma. Follow the same rules. Soon there was the shadow of Captain John's body. Cut it out. Brush. Captain John lost consciousness and showed no sign of struggle. It was easily integrated into William's body. A powerful aura emanated from him. After all, no matter how you say it, he was once a great pirate who was famous in the sea. Captain John's strength during his lifetime was even inferior to legendary monsters such as Whitebeard, Golden Lion, and Big Mom. But as one of the officers of Rock's pirate, also determined not to be too weak, scenes of amazing memories kept reappearing in William's mind. This is a pirate captain who loves money as much as his life, drinks as much as his life, is extremely cruel and stingy, and treats and exploits his subordinates excessively. Treasure hunts and plunders that are full of thrills and excitement every time, leaving people with unforgettable memories. The fight with the pirates, the fight with the marine. More than 30 years ago, when the Rock's pirate disbanded, they took away a large amount of the Rock's pirate's treasures and left Beehive Island. In the end, all the treasures he had spent most of his life collecting were buried on an island in the Grand Line. Moreover, being cautious by nature and not trusting anyone, he divided the complete treasure hiding place into 2 parts. Made an armband and treasure map. And killed all the pirates involved in burying the treasure on the spot. But after a drunken incident, unfortunately, the captain's subordinates, who were extremely afraid and resentful of being treated harshly, rebelled, poisoned and assassinated. Sure enough, there is. I do not know how long it has been. William opened his eyes and chuckled. These corpses are indeed treasures of immeasurable value. He looked at Hogba Gu and Perona, who were looking at him with blazing eyes and full of expectation. He smiled and said, I already know the location of the treasure roughly. It's over in the New World, so there's no need to be in such a hurry. That's great. Too delicious. Why didn't you think the food these guys cooked was delicious before? Time flies. In a blink of an eye, it was already noon. Zombies with Grandmaster's cooking skills have already prepared a sumptuous lunch for them. Barbecue, dishes, desserts, juices, drinks. The aroma is tangy. It's not just 2 big men, William himself and Dr. Hogba Gu. Even Perona, the Princess Mononoke, couldn't be restrained and gobbled it up. However, within a short time, she and Hogba Gu were unable to eat any more. My belly is swollen. All I could do was watch William, feasting there. Moreover, there was a lot of food being served constantly. That exaggerated appetite, jaw-dropping. Grr, grr. All of a sudden, William's bulging belly. It flattened down in an instant, and then continued to enjoy the food, taking in the energy and nutrients in food to supplement the consumption caused by high-intensity training. On weekdays, when he is not in a hurry, although he eats an astonishing amount, he does not devour everything but enjoys the delicious food there. This is also one of his hobbies in life. Isn't it just for enjoyment that people live? I work so hard that I want to make progress, become stronger, and control my own destiny. Isn't it just to enjoy life better? He will not become an ascetic. The will to work hard 200 times beyond ordinary people and practice hard. For the sake of ambition, for the sake of becoming stronger, he does not hesitate to risk his life, the courage to risk everything, the madness of putting everything on the line. He has all of these. But there is no need to push yourself so hard and become a complete slave to strength. When it's time to enjoy, he won't treat himself badly. Every time, Sir William's belly feels like a bottomless pit. Perona complained there. These days, similar scenes have happened so many times that she is used to it. Having mastered the return of life, it's like eating as much as you want without fear of getting fat. Dr. Hogba Gu, who was almost unable to walk, hugged his round belly and bared his teeth in envy. By the way, Perona just swallowed a large piece of bone-in meat. After taking a sip of juice, William remembered something and asked Perona directly, "Have you found that Brooke?" These days, he lets the opponent use the ghost fruit's ability at their leisure. Send the ghost outside to find the whereabouts of Brooke, the nose singer. I found it. I just found it early this morning. I've been letting the ghost of negativity keep an eye on me. Perona on the side said confidently, "That guy is right in front of our ship's course." But Mr. William, is it really necessary to recruit that guy? Dr. Hogba Gu was full of confusion and said with a strange smile, "Hiss, hiss, hiss, if you ask me, just plunder his shadow. Already. In his opinion, Brooke's strength is mediocre. There's nothing worth recruiting. It's better to just plunder its shadow and resurrect a zombie general." After all, the corpses of those zombie generals have now been perfectly repaired by him. Once the implanted shadow is resurrected, its strength will be far greater than the zombie general created by Moria last time. The power of the underworld fruit is pretty good. After destroying the last pizza, I burped with satisfaction. Taking the tissue handed over by Perona and wiping the greasy corners of his mouth, William said with a faint smile, "It's just that the guy hasn't realized this yet and hasn't been able to use his abilities. The most important is that, nose singer, Brooke is not completely without potential. And he is also a musician, which at least can relieve boredom during the boring sailing journey. If you train them well, you can still be a core cadre in your own team in the future. Perona, you go and command the zombie soldiers to sail the boat and go directly there." Hee hee, good. Yo ho ho ho, yo ho ho ho. Sending Binks's whine to you. Far away, from the coast, there was a burst of singing. Some zombie soldiers vaguely heard it. "Shadow is back, I'm so happy. The rudder of a ship has been destroyed and it is drifting on the pirate ship." A skeleton with an afro and a dress was amusing himself there, tilted at 45 degrees. In various poses. "Looking at the shadow under my feet is full of joy." But soon, his whole body was shaken violently, and the skull's jaw almost fell to the ground. As that, a ship of terror. Looking at the huge island ship slowly emerging from the fog that cannot see the sun, becoming increasingly clear. Brooke was a little shocked. "Are those guys coming to steal my shadow again?" "No. We are not here to take away your shadow." Suddenly, a chuckle echoed in Brooke's ears. It shocked him all over. "Who is it?" He immediately drew out his staff and sword. He looked warily towards the direction from which the sound came. "I don't know when it started." A tall and heroic young figure wearing casual clothes appeared there. He was sitting on the bow of the boat, looking at him with a smile. "Who are you?" Brooke's eyes widened. This tall young man is undoubtedly a real person. It was completely different from his impression of the three weirdos and zombies under Moria. "Don't be nervous, I don't mean any harm." William was smiling. He did not hide his identity, and introduced himself. "When we first met, my name is Orbach William, and I am the new owner of the Terror ship. Your shadow was the one who escaped from the zombies and came back after I killed that guy Gecko Moria. In a sense, I am still your benefactor." What? Brooke was shocked. He looked at the impossibly young William in front of him in disbelief. Did you defeat Moria? Released my shadow. Don't believe it. William tilted his head and smiled slightly. The shadow under his feet was directly separated from him, and he stood upright. As if it had a sense of life, it transformed into a dark figure with the same silhouette. This is an amazing scene. Brooke's pupils shrank sharply, and he was a little frightened. As you can see, William said with a smile. After killing Moria, his ability was unexpectedly reborn on the Ship of Terror, and I got it. Now, I am the new Shadow Fruit user. Hiss. Brooke gasped and lost his voice in shock. You got Moria's ability. He never expected it. Such a coincidence happened to the other party. It's incredible. I already know your identity. William looked at Brooke, who was in disbelief, and said straight to the point. Brooke, the user with the ability of the underworld fruit and the nose singer, do you want to join my team? I believe you must be troubled by being trapped in this sea for decades, right? As long as you are willing to work for me, I can take you out of this sea and continue your adventure. Really? Brooke was shaken all over. Everyone's eyes widened. I couldn't help but stepped forward and grabbed William, where he said excitedly, I am willing to join you. As long as you can take me outside, to the Twin Capes at the entrance of the Grand Line, to complete the agreement with Laboon. No matter what the conditions are, I promise you. Yo ho ho ho, hello everyone. I'm Brooke with only a handful of bones, a musician and a swordsman. Not long after, Brooke packed his things. Taking the bones of his companions, he followed William back to the Ship of Terror. I met Perona and Hogba Gu, as well as zombie soldiers who were completely different from the past and were no different from living people. This shocked Brooke. In just over 2 months, the Terror ship has changed a lot. It is no longer as eerie and lifeless as before. Hiss, 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 although you may already know me, I still want to introduce you again. Dr. Hogba Gu put his hands on his hips and said proudly, I am the genius surgeon Dr. Hogba Gu, and I am the ship's doctor of the Hell Pirates. As early as 2 months ago, at William's friendly suggestion, his weird lace outfit has turned into a normal men's outfit. After these days of continuous high-intensity exercise, this guy not only lost a lot of weight, but also became stronger and slightly fatter. He often wears a white coat. He looks like a human being, but he does look a bit like a doctor. And the Hell Pirates. It is a new pirate group established by William borrowing the shell of the Moria pirates. Originally I wanted to call them the Shadow Pirates, but it didn't feel right, so I changed them to the Hell Pirates. Nani, are you the pervert Hobaku? Brooke's jaw almost dropped to the ground when he looked at Hogbagu, who had lost a lot of weight and his image had changed drastically. Is this really the guy in his impression, wearing lace and as fat as a ball? Hey, what do you mean? Huo Guba bared his teeth and glared in dissatisfaction. Oh ho ho ho, I'm sorry, I said the wrong thing. Brooke politely apologized. At the same time, he looked at Dr. Hogba Gu, who looked ordinary but very energetic, and sighed with emotion. You have changed a lot. You look even more handsome. The other party has changed so much. It was obviously brought by the mysterious Lord William. Hiss, 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 for the sake of you praising me, I won't care about what you just said. Being complimented by Brooke, Dr. Hogbaguba smiled broadly, from the corners of his mouth to his ears. Hee hee, I am Perona, a combatant of the Hell Pirates. The sound stopped suddenly. Perona tilted her head, thought for a long time, and finally positioned herself as a combatant. As the mascot, in William's mouth. It makes sense that she is also a combatant, right? Yo ho ho ho, we meet again, the beautiful Miss Perona. Brooke's skull eyes glowed. There he was spinning around excitedly and performed a knight's salute. He approached Perona and asked seriously, can I make a request? Perona's eyelids twitched. It's not like she hasn't dealt with this nose singer before. Naturally, you know what the other person wants to say. However, only Lord William can see her fatness. Just a skeleton. How dare you tease yourself? Go to hell, you perverted skeleton. Negative ghost. Then, in an instant, she waved her right hand. Negative ghosts flew out one by one. Passed through Brooke's body. Thump. Brooke had no time to dodge. Suddenly he fell to his knees, his whole body filled with depression. There he buried his head and said, Sorry, I am a humble waterweed. Interesting ability. William chuckled. Cross your arms and take some time to watch the show. She had no intention of stopping him and just let Perona teach Brooke a lesson. This guy really lacks lessons in this regard. I have to say, Perona's ability is so fun to use to tease people. The stronger and more confident a person is, the more irresistible they are. You will suddenly become extremely depressed and lose your fighting spirit, becoming irresistible and at the mercy of others. And he also said some extremely shameful negative words. Hiss, 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 you really haven't changed at all, nose singer. Dr. Hogbagu smiled strangely there, somewhat gloating about his misfortune. Perona is so beautiful, but why has that pervert Absalom never dared to catch her attention all these years? Not just because Moria raised her like a daughter. It's because this girl's ghost fruit ability is so terrifying. It's just chilling. Thump. In the next life, I would like to be a dung beetle. Thump. I'm sorry, I don't deserve to live in this world. Thump. I'm a scumbag, comma. Finally, until he knelt 10 times in a row. Brooke couldn't hold on any longer, and his skull was almost cracked. No, no, that's enough, that's enough. Watching the specter of negativity coming up again. He was busy begging for mercy, crying and begging for forgiveness. Bowed 90 degrees to Perona and apologized. I was wrong, Miss Perona, please forgive me. HMPH. Perona snorted coldly. I put away the negative ghost and did not continue it. You perverted skeleton, listen clearly. Perona in a princess dress. Holding a flower umbrella, her figure was floating there. Brooke put one hand on his hip, looked down at the front, and said viciously, if you dare to be rude in front of me again, I won't forgive you. Gulu. Absolutely not. Looking at Brooke, who looked at her with an evil look, and was really scared of the Princess Mononoke's abilities, she couldn't help but feel a little numb, and she was busy trying to reassure herself. Even with only a handful of bones left, he didn't dare to talk nonsense. Hee hee, although I don't know why Mr. William let a guy like you get on the ship, but if you dare to do anything unscrupulous, I will not show mercy. Perona hummed. Maybe it's preconceived. She really didn't like Brooke and was inexplicably repelled. I always feel that the other party is not reliable. Of course I know where I stand. Seeing Perona not trusting herself, Brooke felt helpless and said loudly, please believe me, I will never do unnecessary things like that again. After all, Sir William is also my savior. Anyway, his shadow has returned. As for whose shadow William wants to plunder and what kind of zombies he wants to make. After all, Brooke is a pirate, not a savior. All he wanted was to fulfill his agreement with Laboon. Not for those strangers. Sacrifice yourself. All right. The atmosphere looked a little tense. William clapped his hands and said with a smile, from now on, we are all companions in the same boat. Let's just write off all the unpleasantness in the past. You all, get ready. After staying here for so long, it's time for us to go out and get some fresh air. Lord William, are we leaving here? Perona and Hogbagu were surprised. Yo ho ho ho, are you leaving? Brooke was even more excited. After more than 40 years, he could finally leave this hellish place. Gia ha ha ha, I'm not that guy from Moria. William crossed his arms. He looked high-spirited and said with a smile, of course it's impossible to waste time in this dark place like his abandoned house that was hid and lost its ambition all day long. Just think of it as our first trip since the formation of the Hell Pirates. He has stayed here for the past 2 months to develop the ability of the Shadow Fruit. Now the initial development of the fruit's ability has come to an end. Naturally, we have to start the next step of the plan. Go to the Grand Line entrance first and fulfill Brooke's wish. William already had a preliminary plan and said, recruit a few more potential partners. If the team wants to grow and develop, we can't just rely on a few of us. It just so happens that among the treasure maps Moria left behind, I have already deciphered one, so I just went to take it out. Speaking of which, in his mind, a beautiful figure emerged. That woman must have entered the Grand Line, right? He remembered that he had heard about the other party when he was at CP9 a few days ago. Someone discovered traces of the son of the devil near the entrance of the Grand Line. Marine and CP agents heard the news and rushed to arrest him, but he escaped. This is an all-around talent. William naturally hopes to recruit him. During this period, I don't know whether the other party joined the Baroque working group. But he wasn't about to give it up to Crocodile. At worst, grab it. Treasure map. Hee hee, treasure hunting, I like it so much. Oh ho ho ho, thank you so much, Sir William. Little ones, let's set sail. Oh, dusk. Following William's orders, the zombie soldiers who were in charge of the helm began to get busy one after another. Crash, clang, bang, 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 bang. On the ship of terror, the huge rudder began to turn. The exaggerated iron rope makes a clanging sound that makes people break out in a cold sweat. The huge sails were pulled down directly by the zombie soldiers. This outrageously large island ship began to sail slowly away into the distance. Lord William, where is our first destination? Looking at a zombie soldier with Grandmaster's navigation skills, he was rummaging around holding a large number of record pointers. These record pointers were naturally plundered from the ships of pirates and business travelers in the past. What can be left behind are permanent record pointers directly pointing to a certain island. The location of the treasure is on Buffalo Island adjacent to the entrance of the Grand Line. In addition, we have to go to the Twin Capes to fulfill that Guy Brooks' wish. Naturally, William already had a rough itinerary plan. He raised the treasure map in his hand and said with a smile, according to the route, we will first stop by Gaia Island in the middle half of the Grand Line. After all, if you want to develop your power, how can you do it without someone under your command? In addition to the all-around talent, son of the devil, Nico Robin, we have to recruit a few more potential guys no matter what. In the future, even if his right-hand man is not up to the level of the pirate emperor, he must still be worthy of his name and be able to confront Admiral head-on, right? After taking out the treasure buried there, follow the path through the calm belt and enter the East Blue to find a few potential partners. As for whether to go to South Blue next, we still need to see the specific situation. Over there on Gaia Island, the legendary Golden Land. It was naturally impossible for William not to be interested. If nothing else, God Enel has already occupied the place. With the ability of Paramesha Shadowfruit and mastery of Conqueror's Hockey, he is confident that with his current strength, he cannot be afraid of the opponent. But it may not be that easy to subdue the rebellious and arrogant Enel with absolute strength. After all, they are all Logia Thunderfruit's abilities, and there is no way to deprive them of their abilities. If possible, William still hopes to recruit the other party. But it depends on the situation. Lord William, shall we sail under the flag of Lord Moria? Perona suggested there. How about changing to a small boat and setting off in a low-key manner? Indeed, if your identity is accidentally exposed, or the news of Moria's death is known to those guys in Marine. Dr. Hogbakugu is also a little worried. This thriller bark is too ostentatious. In the eyes of the world government and Marine, Gecko Moria must have become a symbol of the 7 warlords of the sea. No matter where it appears, it is bound to attract the attention of all parties. Does Sir William have any special identity? It's been less than a day since I officially joined the Hell Pirates. Brooke, who knew nothing about William's identity, couldn't help but be confused. Gia ha ha ha. William looked at Hobaku, Brooke, and Perona. His eyes were full of amusement, and he chuckled, who told you that Moria is dead? The 3 people and even the zombies couldn't help but shrink in their gazes. The black shadow under William's feet stood up directly there and kept expanding. Brush, black shadow. At a speed visible to the naked eye, it enveloped William's entire body. Like silk, constantly intertwined and wound. Changes occur at a speed visible to the naked eye. A tall figure appeared in front of them. Nearly 7 meters tall, it looks a little bloated, like a little giant, full of oppression. Hey. The sharp, arrogant laughter kept echoing. Perona, Hogba Gu, you 2 actually dare to betray me, you are so good. He ignored Brooke beside him. Just looking down at Hogba Gu and Perona. Full of rage and murderous intent. Ah, Lord Moria. Looking at the extremely familiar figure in front of me. Perona and Hogba Gu couldn't help but widen their eyes and were startled. As if he had seen a ghost, his mouth opened wide and he lost his voice in disbelief. At the same time, his complexion turned pale, breaking into a cold sweat. Moonlight, Moria, even Brooke, they were all shocked. I couldn't help but open my mouth wide and trembling. His whole body was filled with chills, and he was almost speechless. It was really Moria, the 7 warlords of the sea, that put too much pressure on him. He tried his best, but was easily crushed by the opponent and took away the shadow. In the end, he couldn't even defeat a zombie created by Moria using his shadow casually. How could Brooke, who had just seen hope and wanted to leave this sea, not be afraid? Are you not dead, Lord Moria? Perona was surprised and happy. Gulu, how is it possible? Huobubagu broke into a cold sweat and subconsciously took a few steps back. Looking at the familiar bloated figure in front of him, he couldn't help but swallow his saliva and turned pale. Moria. Sir, aren't you dead? He seemed a little panicked. Gia ha ha ha. How? There was a burst of laughter. Black shadows linger. Moria's tall figure disappeared in an instant. In his place was William himself. He looked at Perona, Brooke, and Hogba Gu with a smile. Do you think Marine can recognize him? Wait, Master William, did you change this through your shadow? Hiss. Does the shadow fruit still have such an ability? Hear the words. For a while, the three of them woke up with cold sweat on their heads. He looked at the calm and smiling William in front of him in surprise. Some were inexplicably shocked and full of disbelief. Don't compare that Moria guy to me. William crossed his arms, full of pride, and said, he has not been able to fully demonstrate the power of the shadow fruit at all. That's him these days. Make bold attempts based on your original abilities. A deeply developed new ability, Phantom Transformation. After half a month, we have been working tirelessly on in-depth development and continuous attempts. Not only does it meet expectations, but it can also make the shadow clone look exactly like itself, making it look like the real one. It can even be transformed into any shape or form. If you can directly obtain the effect of Paramesha clone fruit. After all, even Paramesha string fruit's ability can develop string clones that are difficult to distinguish between true and false, and Logia sparkling fruit can create a bunch of light clones. There is no reason why the shadow fruit's ability cannot do this. Phew, I was almost scared to death by you, Sir William. It was confirmed that the Moria just now was really transformed by William. Dr. Hogba Gu and Perona both collapsed on the ground, patting their chests, and their backs were soaked in cold sweat. My heart is almost beating out, even though I don't have a heart, yo ho ho ho. Even Brooke, who only has a handful of bones left, is no exception. They were really scared. She thought that Moria was not dead, so she used the unknown ability of the shadow fruit to seize William's body. I also thought for a while that Moria's shadow fruit ability was too special and she never really died. She just faked her death by pretending to be William's shadow and deceived everyone. Even Perona, in her heart of hearts, she hopes that Moria, whom she regards as an adoptive father, is really alive. But the scene just now was too terrifying. Completely unprepared. I really didn't expect that the shadow fruit actually has such an ability. After a while, after regaining his composure, he was amazed. Hogba Gu couldn't help grinning and said excitedly, but in this way, the fake can be mistaken for the real. After all, Moria is a user of the shadow fruit, and Sir William, you are also a user of the shadow fruit. This means, William could definitely wear the skin of Gecko Moria, the 7 warlords of the sea. Being fair and above board, taking them to sail freely all over the world, not only can scare the pirates, but even Marine can't take action against them. It would be great. Perona couldn't help but her eyes lit up. Without Marine taking action against them, how many of the pirates in the first half of the Grand Line are their opponents? Yo ho ho ho, as expected of Sir William, he can actually do such an exaggerated thing. Brooke was also a little surprised. The Gecko Moria just looked like a real person. It gave them a great sense of oppression. After all, for now, the identity of 7 warlords of the sea is still of great use. If you don't use it, it will be in vain. William nodded. I have to say that the skin of 7 warlords of the sea is still very useful. When needed, take it out and wear it, when not needed, throw it aside. Anyway, in addition to Perona and Hogba Gu, there are also those zombie soldiers who obey orders. Not many people knew that Gecko Moria had already been killed by him. The pirates and business travelers who had some knowledge were all locked up in the dungeon by him. Moreover, the shadow was taken away. Time waits for no one. William clenched his fists. He believes that as long as he endures loneliness and lies low-key for a year or two, when he fully develops the ability of the shadow fruit, he will continue to draw on the shadows of those strong people, and practice unremittingly, honing his physical skills, swordsmanship, and even conqueror's hockey to become more proficient. His own strength will surely usher in a huge leap. At the same time, the forces under his command can also develop and grow under the eyes of Marine by relying on the skin of 7 warlords of the sea. What if Marine and world government find out? He has been unwilling to be mediocre and ambitious from the beginning, determined to step on this sea. Sooner or later, he will break into the new world. Face those monsters head on. Fight for the throne of Pirate Emperor. Yo-ho-ho, it's great, woo. The next morning, looking at the red sun in the distant sky, in order to fulfill the agreement with Whale Laboon, Brooke, who chose to join William's army and was left with only a handful of bones, was moved to tears. I finally came out. Yes, not long ago. The terrifying ship that has been hiding in the Devil's Triangle for several years has left this sea area for the first time. 6,854, 6,855, 6,856. Waving dumbbells that were as high as a hill and as heavy as a jerk. In the past few days, William, who had been practicing swordsmanship and hockey according to his memory and had achieved remarkable results, smiled and said, "Perona, are you free?" In order to prevent his identity from being exposed, he reduced his body to 2 meters tall with the help of Life Return, and even his appearance changed a lot. To the outside world, he was a cadre under Gecko Moria, the vice-captain of the Hell Pirates, the Wind Swordsman Yasuo. Originally, he wanted to disguise himself as a Paramesha retractable fruit ability user. But considering the similar characteristics of the Paramesha rubber fruit, William gave up directly. The fruit that the world government did not hesitate to tamper with the devil fruit illustration to hide its real name is too special. It is easy to attract the attention of the top leaders of the world government. Although the fruit was taken away by Red Hair Shanks a few years ago. But if the world government misunderstands him and thinks he might have obtained the rubber fruit, it would be bad to take the blame for nothing. It would be better to disguise himself as a swordsman. Anyway, he has the important memories of swordsmen such as Ryoma and Captain John. With his strong physical fitness and considerable talent in swordsmanship, he is more than qualified to be a swordsman. If he is willing to work hard, he may become a real swordsman in the future. His way of directly obtaining other people's memories from the first-person perspective can almost be said to be equivalent to an immersive experience, simulating the other person's life again and again. Whether it is the practice of hockey or the related kendo perception, it is much more exaggerated and profound than the teaching of those famous teachers. It can be said that practicing is twice the result with half the effort, and the progress is rapid. It is jaw-dropping. William, no, Lord Yasuo, I am helping you patrol the enemy situation. Perona's face fell, and he hurriedly stepped forward to flatter, can I take a day off? No. Half a day. The movement of his hands did not stop. Still swinging the dumbbell, up and down as if swinging a sword vigorously. William turned his head without blushing or panting, and looked at the other party with a smile, are you bargaining with me? Today your training plan is doubled, and you are not allowed to eat if you don't complete it. Perona's little thoughts, of course, can't be hidden from him. There are special raptor zombie soldiers responsible for patrolling the enemy situation, and she, the ghost princess, is not needed. This girl just wants to be lazy. Not satisfied, then double it again. No, I will go to practice immediately. Perona made a bitter face. The consciousness that left the body returned to the body in a hurry. Together with Dr. Hogubagu, who had already consciously trained on the side, continuously hitting the wooden stake in front of him. Way, Lord Yasuo, is there anything I can do? Brooke scratched his head. Even William, the boss, worked so hard. Everyone was training, which made him a little embarrassed. Since you think you have too much free time, then let me fully see the strength of your new member. William looked at him and said indifferently, no problem. Then, please give me some advice, Sir William. The ship of terror moves slowly. On the wide training field, a skeletal Brooke performed a knightly salute with a staff and sword. Shadow Mage. William, who was training there, didn't talk nonsense, and the shadow figure under him stood up. He flew directly in front of Brooke. Brooke's pupils shrank sharply. Shaving. Finger pistol. For a moment, Shadow Mage didn't give him any time to prepare and took action directly. Wait. Brooke's hair stood on end. Retreat subconsciously. But it was too late. His chest was mercilessly pierced by the Shadow Mage. The next moment, the black shadow's sharp right leg swept away. Kang. Brooke, who had no time to draw his sword, narrowly blocked it with his staff and sword. Being hit by that powerful and heavy kick, it was so shocked that it flew back. It was such a close call, I almost got penetrated. Look at the transparent finger holes on the front and back of the dress. Brooke, whose body had long since decayed and was only a skeleton, wiped away the non-existent cold sweat and said, "Oh ho 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 ho, it seems like there is no flesh and blood, so it has certain advantages." Really, William, who was watching the battle while waving a heavy dumbbell, looked amused. The next moment, the menacing Shadow Mage, like an afterimage, it swooped out. Tempest kick. Its right foot is like electricity. Without any hesitation, he kicked out violently. Whoops. An astonishing light green slash came through the air, but Brooke dodged it awkwardly. Boom. Smoke and dust were flying. The earth was torn directly into shocking holes. In the blink of an eye, before Brooke could stabilize his body, the black shadow had already flicked his fly finger pistol. Call out. An air blade came through the air. Nightlight song penetrating straight through. Brooke, who was barely able to react to the Shadow Mage's release, did not sit still and wait for death. The sharp sword was drawn out in an instant. Thrust out. Kang. Sparks sputter. The staff knife collided with the air blade. The next moment, Brooke's eyes blurred, and a black shadow rushed towards him. Kai. A black blade suddenly appeared from its right hand. The afterimages that filled the sky were like violent storms, coming in violently. Bottle dance serial strike. Clang, clang. The sound of gold and iron clashing continues. The extremely sharp shadow knife kept colliding with Brooke's staff knife. Hogba Gu, Corona, and the zombie soldiers who were training on the side were all attracted by the movement and looked over. They were all a little surprised. Brooke was constantly forced back. The sword's momentum was completely messy. William's Shadow Mage appears to be at ease and relaxed. Even though he has released a lot of water, Brooke is still forced to scramble. There is a judgment between the two. Although the strength is a bit lacking, it's still okay as a junior cadre. William, who was multitasking, training, manipulating the Shadow Mage, and fighting with swords, nodded slightly. Not surprising. After all, from the beginning, he doesn't have high expectations for Brooke's strength. Bai Jie sanding arrow tail chop. Soon, Brooke, who was at the end of his rope, gritted his teeth and launched the final offensive against the Shadow Mage. His body looks like electricity, and he swings out his staff and sword. Paper arts. Between the electric light and flint, Shadow Mage is as thin as paper flying in the wind. In an incredible way, he dodged Brooke's swift blow. Face the blast. 36 tornadoes. At the same time, the black shadow's momentum suddenly became fierce. The extremely sharp shadow knife traced a rapid trajectory. Sweep out. Woo-hoo-hoo. A violent gust of wind, accompanied by an astonishing wind blade, struck suddenly. What? Brooke's pupils dilated as he just regained his balance and was unable to dodge. The whole person was directly pressed by the strong wind and flew out. The clothes all over his body were torn apart by countless wind blades. Tattered. Wait, I give up. In the blink of an eye, he fell to the ground hard. Brooke was in ragged clothes and in a state of disarray, dripping with cold sweat. He decisively admitted defeat, as expected of Lord William. Looking at the shadow returning to William's feet, Brooke wiped his cold sweat and said sincerely, "You are so awesome." At this moment, he had a clearer understanding of this adult's strength. Whether it was physical skills or swordsmanship, he was incredibly strong, both far superior to himself. Just relying on a shadow clone, without even taking it seriously, you can easily crush him who is going all out. He is worthy of being the man who can kill Gecko Moria. Call. Swinging dumbbells of incredible weight. There was no shaking at all in his hand, which was extremely stable. William, who did not stop training, said bluntly, "You have not fully utilized the ability of the underworld fruit. Next, I will guide you in related development and training. In addition, your sword skills also need to be improved. In addition to resurrecting people after death, does the underworld fruit have other abilities? Brooke was filled with surprise. He always thought that this was the end of the underworld fruit. In addition to turning himself into a landlubber, it also gives him a chance to be resurrected after death. Sure, any ability, in addition to the basic abilities that come with it, can play a more powerful role as long as it is developed in a reasonable and in-depth manner, but that is related to the individual's talent. The perfect muscle lines are tight and sparkle under the sunlight. As if he had formed a muscle memory, William persisted in waving the dumbbells while looking at the other person strangely. Speaking of which, I'm very curious. After you came back from the dead, you haven't practiced seriously in the past few decades. It's really embarrassing that you can't even defeat a zombie. Judging from Brooke's progress in 2 years, it's not that he has no potential to tap. But after this guy was resurrected with the power of the underworld fruit, he never practiced well at all. As long as Brooke practices seriously, even if you don't know hockey, you can't defeat Ryoma's zombies. In fact, Moria will not take away his shadow so easily. Not to mention defeating Moria, the 7 warlords of the sea. But at least I can retreat calmly. But after hearing what William said later, his old face couldn't help but blush. He scratched his afro and smiled sheepishly. After I was resurrected, because the rudder of the ship was broken, I couldn't leave this devil's triangle of sea no matter how hard I tried. Moreover, because I lost my goal, I fell into confusion for a long time. Also, I always thought that after turning into a skeleton, my body's speed and strength have been limited. No matter how hard I try, I can't get stronger. Brooke asked excitedly. What do you think, can I become stronger again? The underworld fruit has a very special ability, it can bring people back to life. William looked at Brooke seriously and couldn't help but sigh. But I have to admit, your situation is really rare. What's incredible is that even in the state of a skeleton, you can continue to digest food and absorb the nutrients. Your bone strength and speed haven't changed, not only because you haven't exercised enough, but also because you were trapped in the devil's triangle and didn't eat much at all. If he remembered correctly, Brooke is ready to eat. And what's exaggerated is that even with a handful of bones left, this guy can still defecate normally. Even if the skeleton is cracked or chipped due to external force damage, calcium can be replenished by drinking milk to heal the cracks and regenerate the bones. That seems to make sense. Brooke suddenly understood. Over the years, he rarely ate. Because he is a capable person and cannot go into the sea. And I met almost no one. Even the other ghost ships were mostly destroyed. There is no way to leave this sea area. So, I speculate that you can actually become as strong as a normal human being. William smiled and said, and, since you no longer have a body, there is no limit to aging. In theory, you can still grow. Logically speaking, Brooke is already 80 or 90 years old, right? But his bones did not age over time like normal old people. Therefore, William believes that even if Brooke puts aside the development of his fruit abilities, as long as he eats normally and supplements it with some reasonable exercise, he can still continue to become stronger. However, your bones are indeed too fragile. Looking up and down at Brooke's Nathan White skeleton, William added, after some time, I will find a way to help you strengthen it. He thinks Paramesha Munch Fruit's ability should strengthen Brooke's frame. After all, apart from the black afro, all that's left of this guy is a skeleton. If you modify it a little bit, I believe you won't care too much, right? Is that okay? Brooke was shocked. Not sure, but you can give it a try. William didn't care about authenticity. Anyway, over there in the Drum Kingdom. It's not far from their route, and it's on the way. By this time, the king of the Drum Kingdom, Wapple, has most likely become a user with the ability of Munch Fruit. Just tie this guy up. It doesn't matter whether you listen or not. Anyway, he was able to pass the Shadow Fruit's ability. The ability to forcibly control the opponent and control Munch Fruit in disguise. Yo ho ho ho, that's really great. Brooke was excited. Spinning around happily there. Suddenly, a violin appeared in his hand, and he bowed to William. Sir William, please let me play a song for you to express my gratitude. Ha, then I'm all ears. The voyage of the sea. It's boring. A week passed by in a hurry. In the past few days, not to mention the islands, not even a ship has been seen. In the harsh climate of Grand Line, sometimes there are violent storms, sometimes there are hail and snowstorms, sometimes it is sunny and sunny. For William and others, they have long been accustomed to it. Although those zombie navigators are not very good. But the huge size of the terror ship is enough to ignore most severe climate changes. Lord Yasuo, a jet black, extremely fast falcon hovered down from high in the sky. He actually spoke human words and reported there, at 3 o'clock, about 10 nautical miles away, there is a large pirate ship. The hull is somewhat damaged, as if it had just experienced a battle. There are probably hundreds of people. Surprisingly, it seemed to be full of death. There is absolutely no vigor and vitality that a raptor should have. Oh, located on the front of the ship of terror, it is a transformed training ground. Relying on the return of life, he shrunk his body and changed into the vest of the swordsman Yasuo. William, who was instructing the training of Perona, Brooke, and Hogbaku, raised his eyebrows. Pirate ship. The three people who were training were even more surprised. Immediately, he looked at William with burning eyes. Some expectations. Is it within range? William smiled. Just right, I want to verify my new ability. Yo ho ho ho, has Master William developed a new ability? Brooke on the side was curious. Regarding the exaggerated talents of this adult. He was already so shocked that he was no longer surprised. In just a few days, he saw with his own eyes what genius is. The opponent's swordsmanship has improved rapidly, and the speed of improvement is simply jaw-dropping. He is already a veritable swordsman. Hiss, SSSSSS, I'm really looking forward to it. Hogba Gu, wearing a white coat, said with a strange smile. Hee hee, it's bad luck for them. Perona, who was sweating profusely from training, shook her ponytail. He folded his arms and had big round eyes. Full of excitement. Then let me contribute. I'm so unlucky. On the rough sea, a large pirate ship, hundreds of meters long, was moving forward there. A middle-aged man with a fierce face wearing a pirate hat and a gray captain's cape was cursing. Those marine guys are chasing us like dog skin plaster. Surprisingly, he wore a black eye patch that covered his left eye, leaving only his right eye exposed. There were 2 pistols on his waist, and a large gold chain as thick as a thumb hung around his neck, full of roughness and fierceness. In his hand, he held a gleaming sword. Captain, what's next? There are traces of battles all over and some damaged pirate ships. Some fierce pirates looked at their captain. Many people even wore some bandages and colorful clothes. Somewhat embarrassed. Obviously, he was at a disadvantage in the previous encounter with Marine. Didn't take any advantage. What can be done? It's impossible to fight them head-on, right? They are a small fleet, headed by Marine's most advanced warship. What are you afraid of? We are the one-eyed pirate group famous in North Blue. Yes, our captain is the frightened, one-eyed, hacks with a bounty of 98 million Baileys. Wait a minute, that's the Vice Admiral of Naval Headquarters, and their warships are too powerful. On deck, those cadres, you said something to me. Blushing and starting to argue. It was extremely noisy. Bang, bang, please be quiet. One-eyed, Hacks frowned. He pulled out his pistol and fired several shots in succession. The cadres and other pirates who were arguing and almost fighting were quickly quieted down. They all looked at their captain there. Stop arguing. One-eyed, Hacks put his hands on his hips and gritted his teeth and said, try to get rid of those guys. If you can't get rid of them, you will have to fight. Captain, there is a situation on the sea. Suddenly. On top of the mast. The watchman was filled with panic. There he loudly reported to the bottom. It's an island. With the help of a monocular telescope, he looked at the huge thing coming slowly and increasingly clearly from the distance. With disbelief, he broke out in cold sweat. Gulu. No, that is, a ship. What? The pirates below were all shocked and inexplicable. The leader, One Eye, and the other cadres couldn't help but look solemn on their faces. He's in such a panic that he can't say anything right. He's such a worthless guy. What exactly is going on? He scolded with a cold face. One-eyed, Hacks came to the bow. He took out a monocular telescope from his pocket and looked at the sea in the distance. Immediately, his color suddenly changed. I saw the sea on the right. A huge island ship is approaching. The direction was clearly where they were. That ship, staring at the sea ahead. One-eyed, Hax frowned, a little surprised. It's a pirate ship. Gulu, this is too big. Captain, do you want to avoid it? After taking a clear look at the exaggerated island ship, all the officers of the one-eyed pirates couldn't help but change their colors in shock. The huge pirate flag on it showed that it was not an ordinary ship, but a pirate ship. Avoid them. One-Eye's expression changed, but he finally ordered through gritted teeth. Although he has a bad temper, he is not stupid. For such a huge pirate ship, the opponent's background is definitely not small. Hee hee, hee hee, hee hee. At this time, on top of the mast, there was a burst of crisp and arrogant laughter. Sorry, I want to leave at this time, but it's a bit late. Who? For a while, both One-Eyed Hax and his pirates couldn't help but change their expressions. He suddenly raised his head and looked up. I saw a girl wearing a crown, twin ponytails, a princess dress, and holding a flower umbrella, floating strangely in midair. Beside her, there were several strange, jelly-like translucent ghost creatures floating there. He was looking at these pirates with a smile. That is. Intruder. A woman. Why is she able to float there? Is she an esper? What are those weird jelly-like things? Look at Perona, who suddenly appears above. The pirates of the One-Eyed Pirates were a little shocked. Seeing that the opponent seemed to have no weight, floating on it without falling down, I guessed that the opponent was probably demon fruit power. Who are you? The right eye is fixed on Perona above. One-Eyed Hax's face darkened, and he shouted and asked. Hee hee, hee hee, hee hee. The figure floats. Holding a small flower umbrella, he looked down at the pirates below. Perona put one hand on her waist and said extremely arrogantly, I declare that you have all been captured. Do you want to surrender and be captured, or do you want me to take action myself? What, asshole, court death, fire, it's just a person with abilities. A woman who doesn't know how to live or die. Bang, bang. For a while, the pirates below were enraged. There was no need for the gloomy-looking One-Eye to give orders. Several fierce-looking pirates had already raised their guns and pointed them at Perona above. No mercy, just pull the trigger. However, a shocking scene happened for them. Bullets pierced through Perona and the ghostly creatures around her strangely. It couldn't hurt her at all. What? This is an amazing scene. A famous pirate's eyes widened. Even One-Eye and the cadres couldn't help but change their expressions. Hee hee, hee hee, hee hee, you really have to drink wine as a penalty if you don't eat the toast. Perona sneered and took action directly. Ghosts kept emerging from the palm of his hand, forming a row, negative ghosts. In the shocked and incomprehensible eyes of One-Eyed Hax and other pirates, they all flew down. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.